new microphone, so we'll see if it's how it sounds. Hi guys, it's Mark Zicree, Mr. Sci-Fi. How are you tonight? Elena's running off. Go, 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 Elaine. Go, 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 Elaine, go. She's getting a phone call. So, hello everyone. So I can see that there's multitudes, and gosh, not many table people yet. So I guess it's just the three of us. And David's on the phone. Hi, Adam.
Yeah, hi.
So, are there any Mr. Sci-Fi questions you'd like to ask?
That I'd like to ask.
Sure. You've got the floor. And there's Dave Edison. Yay.
Oh well, I mean, we don't want to keep Dave Edison waiting, So
I was asking Dave if Adam has any Mr. Sci-Fi questions, so I can ask that of both of you.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I love everything you're doing with the show so far.
Thank you.
Being in a privileged position on the team,
yes.
I know more than most people.
Yes.
The storylines and everything. So
it's exciting.
Yeah.
So that's okay.
There has been a lot of questions, and I agree. Mm-hmm. I'm also curious about this, about like the hierarchy.
Yes.
Of Space Command. Is it under United Planet, or is it?
Yes. Here's a basic gag. It's as though, if you think about the United Nations, the United Planets is the governing body. Okay. Originally, it was United Planet when everyone came together on Earth, but then when we went out into space, it became United Planets. But Space Command is sort of like the peacekeepers, like United Nations, when they send people out, or when they send people out via UNICEF. It's kind of their Space Command is essentially the the active part of United Planets in terms of doing stuff out in space, whether it's peacekeeping or exploration or whatever.
Only they don't wear robin's egg blue uniforms.
Not yet.
United Nations.
Yeah. But it's interesting because
that's just a budgetary concern.
Yes, that was the fabric that was available that day, but on sale. So, and Dave, do you have any Mr. Sci-Fi questions?
Let's see. Do I have any Mr. Sci-Fi questions?
Yeah.
Let me get back to you in a couple of days.
Sure, you bet. So, and now I'm trying with a microphone, so if people can't hear me on Mr. Sci-Fi, let me know.
So YouTube accepted Alien.
I don't know. There's been that copyright complaint, but so far we've got about 600 people who've watched it, so that's good.
It might just be a monetizing thing. They just not let you monetize it.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out. We'll see what happens. So I see Thane is there. I like your background, Thane.
From the comments coming in, it looks like they can hear you.
Great.
Mr. Sci-Fi.
Great. And if anyone wants to comment on if it sounds better than my usual in computer mic, let me know, because I picked this thing up at Barnes & Noble. And I will use it in moving forward. Here it is. Look at that. I'll use it moving forward if it sounds good. If it doesn't sound good, yeah. So Thane, why don't we start with you, since you're there and you look like you should get out of there before the two monsters notice you.
They're my pets.
Yes.
I don't know. I see these pictures and it's like, well, that looks like fun.
Yes.
But I have no context for them.
So how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. I booked a little project on Sunday for a music video that is a famous star, but they won't tell me who it is.
Cool.
But it pays money.
Good.
Which kind of makes my manager happy, although since it's not network TV at $1,000 a day, she's disturbed that I book these little jobs that might be taking away from the real work. But without being snarky, I don't find out who I haven't had any real work in a year. So it keeps me moving. I don't know if UN is a third rail topic here or not, but maybe I can share my UN story.
Sure, go for it.
When I was a junior in college, at the University of Illinois, three other guys and I took off in one of the guys' car and drove from Champaign-Urbana to DC and up to New York back during spring break. And while we were staying in New York, we all hustled over to UN, which was relatively new in 1960. 12 years old. And, being young and impressionable and idealistically, I fell in love with the notion of the UN, building the concept, the hope, the dreams that were encompassed there. It probably led somewhat to my eventual tour of duty with the Peace Corps volunteer. But I remember saying to one of my friends at the time, it would be so great to have a UN passport and be part of this. And flash forward about 40 years later, 35 years later, I was involved in a project in Panama. And it was funded through UN development project. Paid the bills. We delivered as contractors for USC.
Wow.
The first thing they did is issue us an ID card that looked like, was not a passport, not a UN passport, but it had the blue folder with the golden bust on the front and UNDP.
Wow.
But I still have it. While we're moseying about tonight, I might see if I can find it and hold it up. David always seems to be being right at his fingertips, but he's far more organized. But anyway, it's still a dream. It's still a work in progress, and I got into the tail end of the discussion there. Puts in context what I'm learning over time about space. Congratulations on doing it.
Thanks. Anything else you need, Thane?
Like everybody else, hoping to get out from under this COVID cloud. I have both my shots, and I had a COVID test this morning before you go inside. You have to have a test with the shot, and that gives me a little more freedom to move about. And I'm hoping as things open up here, things will move along. I am starting to search out an active class. It's been years since I've been in an active class. Need to give back.
That's great. I'll mention one thing since you have Kong versus Godzilla in your background. Both Ray Bradbury and Ray Harryhausen told me that when they were teenagers in 1933, they were both around 13 years old when the original King Kong came out. Now, King Kong was a stop motion miniature about yay big. My friend Bob Burns owns the original armature, but they also made for close-ups a gigantic head that was full size, and so that gigantic head was out in the foyer of the movie theater here in LA, and both of them were just like gobsmacked when they saw it, and so that's a pretty great memory to have, and And one other thing, just since we were talking about politics and the United Nations and so forth, I'm about to discover if I have any political clout, and I'll tell you why. Every day I go to the dog park, or this park around the corner where dozens of dogs and their owners hang out, and everyone runs and plays and chases balls. I mean, that's the dogs mainly. But so today I went there, and the park personnel were saying you have to keep your dog on leash. Everyone has to keep their dog on leash from now on. And it's like, oh, well, that wrecks it, and the dogs can't run, they can't chase balls, they can't do anything. And so I said, well, there's anything I can do to see if we can change that. And he said, well, you could write your local, supervisor. So it turns out that I went to high school with Paul Koretz, who's my local supervisor. So I just sent him an email saying, from Mark Zicree, from Mark Zicree High School, with a question, right? Mark Zicree from high school. So we'll see if I have any influence at all, watch this space. So
So is that a county park or is it your
it's the local.
city?
City.
It's local. It's local.
No,
Yeah.
but
It's
it's
your
city.
city
No,
council,
it's
but
it's
not-
outside of West Hollywood.
Yeah.
It's just it's such a tiny little area, West Hollywood, and
Yeah.
it's just south of.
Yes. Yes. So
Yeah.
So it's a city park, not
Yes.
not
Yeah.
a West Hollywood park.
So we'll see what happens. But there's Dave Edison.
Oh,
What
wow.
is that a photo? Oh, Kong. Yes, holding the
Yay.
armature. Amazing, isn't it, Dave?
That's
Um,
great.
It's remarkable. Bob Burns is there in the background.
Yeah,
But he
amazing
brought
guy.
he brought the armature to Monsterpalooza and
Wow,
just let lunatics like myself take pictures with it.
that's
Oh,
great.
wow.
Without an armed guard within reach.
Bob told me that he had been offered $1 million from the Smithsonian for it, and he had turned them down. And
Yeah, that's a decision I wouldn't have made.
yeah, and the other thing he told me was when he got it. See, originally, of course, it had fur and latex on it, and it was King Kong. But by the time he got it, that had all kind of rotted away. So he actually did sort of like, I guess, an acid wash or whatever to strip away all the remnants of the crap that was on it, because it didn't look like anything at that point. And of course, that took it down to the metal. And fortunately, the metal of Kong's head is really cool. So yeah, you can see that it's Kong, definitely. So that's really phenomenal. And if anyone has never seen the original King Kong, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. It is so much better than any of the remakes. And
There are photos for the Mr. Sci-Fi people. There are plenty of photos of this armature
great.
online, except those photos don't have me standing next to it.
No, and that's the real deal. The Smithsonian probably is going to offer like 1.5 million now that they know you come with the deal. So
But
so
it's tough because we've seen several collectors who were very careful, had the thing in glass cases, but they still couldn't deal with the smog over a period of years.
yeah, well,
And
yeah.
everything went-
Well, Doug Hayes, had the Invader, from the Agnes Moorehead Twilight Zone episode, which he designed with William Tuttle and operated, a little hand puppet painted gold. And he had it on his coffee table for many years, and then the smog just rotted it away, and he threw it out, which is like, oh man, what a pity. But so yeah. So on that note, Adam, are there any Mr. Sci-Fi questions?
Yes, we have a whole gaggle of Mr. Sci-Fi questions.
Great.
But we'll start with Mark Lungo,
Hello, Mark.
who says, "Hey, Zicree's been reading about sexism lately.
Oh, really?
Will the female characters in your series be dealing with sexism?"
Yes, but I tend to just write strong female characters, as of course does Elaine. It's not so much that they deal with sexism as are powerful women who stand as symbols to refute sexism. It's kind of like, you solve a problem by solving a problem. And but I mean, the more we have strong females, and including gay females in science fiction, the more young people aspire to live like those people. And I mean, how many women saw Nichelle Nichols in the original Star Trek? I mean, there are Black female astronauts who would never have thought of even being astronauts if not for Nichelle Nichols. So it's
Well, we do have that issue in with Angelique and her dad.
who doesn't want her to join Space Command because it's dangerous.
Yes, because he did see that as a male role, and
Mhm.
and then he told her that he wasn't ever in danger
Yeah.
until
And Michelle's influence still continues. It's not
Yes.
just people who watched
true.
it in the 60s. It's,
yes.
it's in
Yeah.
syndication now on streaming over the years.
Yes.
Still inspiring.
Yes, and definitely miniskirts and go-go boots are what powerful women wear. No two ways about it. And so
And that Bluetooth that she always wore.
my favorite thing that one could say about Nichelle Nichols, beyond that she was huge inspiration for everyone, is that there's one episode where they go to the mirror image, the mirror universe where everyone's evil, and you see her wearing a variant of the Star Trek uniform that has a bare midriff, and my God, her abs, she was so ripped for that era. She was in great shape, and I'm sure that's because she was also a dancer, but she looks just great. So that's something to note. So okay, so I guess Christine, I see you've come aboard. If you want to take your turn and jump in.
Sure. Hello, everybody. shared that I ended up on a project, and so I was talking to someone. I'm like, yes, well, now I've become a pod person, not your Invasion of the Body Snatchers 1956 pod person, yet still a movie set for a pod. And there was even a training about how to stay in your pod and keep everyone healthy. And I guess if you get into a pod, they kind of move you from one project to another project to keep the health concerns down.
Yes.
And that was exciting to, kind of expand that part. And then someone got my own comfort zone of magnificent things. And I shared that last week. And so one of the things I ended up doing was today, I took the COVID compliance officer test.
Yay.
Okay.
And then I discovered that the one that they did for me was the non-union set. And I'm like, oh, now I have more investigation to do because there must be one for union.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
But,
Yes.
But it was really fun to just go, oh, look, this is right up my alley. Unfortunately, I have colleagues from outside the entertainment industry, just an admin job, that I would forever be cleaning things, and they would like go, oh, Christine, you're just so, nobody cares, and I'm thinking, well, you will when you get sick. So I thought it was really funny.
So excuse me.
That's currently what's going on. Very excited about getting back on a set, multiple sets, and looking forward to all that 2021 has to offer.
Cool.
Oh, David, you found the union COVID compliance training, right?
I did that training, and the thing is odd is that there's no union for compliance officers, so that's what they mean by non-union. They don't mean that it doesn't include the SAG rules or anything like that.
Great.
It does.
Okay.
Unions have their own COVID rules, so then the COVID compliance officer is compelled to find out what they are at the end of those sets.
Okay.
That's how it went. Yeah, cool. I did that too.
Okay.
Beat it and all assistant, and I did it together. And the first thing they taught us in the class was that you can't be your own COVID compliance officer.
Yes, that's good.
Someone said, or they have to bring an officer to my set, but I can't be my own. And that makes sense because the producer would say, yeah, it's close enough.
Yeah, really. Okay, cool. So anything else, Christine?
No, I'm just happy to see everybody every week. And
Great.
Look forward to when we get back in person. That is a question. Are you thinking of going in person at all in the future? Back to Marie calendars?
We have to really wait until I think most people have been vaccinated. I think right now it's around 14%. That's too low. Yes, I mean, ultimately, but then we have to figure out what we do about all the people who come via Zoom, because there are people from New York and London, and it seemed or Liverpool, and it seems a shame to lose those people. So I really don't have a good answer. It's possible that we'll just record these sessions we're doing now and just play them at Marie calendars, and Elaine and I can just go and go to the movies or something. But we'll see. It's all going to shake out.
Well, yeah, because right now we have. I don't know. Do you know what Marie Calendars is doing? Do you know they're letting people inside?
Yeah, I'm sure they are.
They are. Yeah.
But
if about this too, we could have a laptop with a Zoom call on during the in-person panel meeting and combine them.
So then, what we have to wait for, because remember we were shoulder to shoulder, and I assume
it's not.
that
We
was
can't do
spread
it
out
yet.
a bit.
No.
So as soon as we can kind of crowd in, then I guess we will be.
It'll be a few months. Yeah. It'll be a few months, but I'm sure we'll be able to do it.
I saw a couple of films over the weekend, and it was odd for me to go out in public like that with so many people I didn't know.
Yes, it's creepy.
I know the people, and it's like I don't know if I want to be out with these people. So I was uncomfortable being in public, even though they were their idea of 6 foot and then snack bar line was more like 3.5 feet.
Right.
Right. They were really pushing the envelope. I'm like, I don't want to push the envelope.
No.
So
and I think there's a huge difference between being vaccinated and not being vaccinated, because again, Elaine and I both got our second shots, and it really makes you a lot more comfortable to be out in the world, because I mean, we still wear the masks, we still distance, because my God, who wants to hang out with those people?
Well,
they're
still learning things. I mean, they're still learning things, and they're still trying to suss out these more virulent strains.
Yeah.
But the main thing is like, is it possible to be a carrier? Da da da. We just want to make sure that we don't do damage.
Well, we don't want to kill anybody.
Yeah.
So if we can, yeah.
No, but you can still be a carrier, and we're not even sure about the strains that are now
Yeah.
mutating strains.
Right.
And
No.
we're not complete yet. It's great that people are getting this way, and that you guys are safe on your end and all that.
Yes.
I mean, I personally don't think it's time to go back and read calendars.
No, I don't either. So, okay, great. So is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Yes. Our next question is from Scott Gamble.
Mhm.
And he is curious about the high school alien play and it being posted and then unposted and then posted. And then...
Yes. What happened was YouTube initially blocked it, and it turned out that it was because there was certain music in it that was there had been a claim against it because it was like rock and roll, hard, heavy metal, etc. So Dave took out one sort of moment where music was being played, and it's still getting blocked in certain countries. For instance, Kim Jong Un can't watch it as I understand it, and nor can who's the guy in charge of Syria? That guy, whatever it is. So, but we've had 600 people look at it, but I really wanted to put it up if I could because it's so fun and impressive and cool, and so but but Dave could still go through it and weed out more of the music, and I think that would allow it to be seen in
The problem is the music is under things like the announcer naming people during the curtain call and applause, and
right.
You don't want to pull out the kids' names.
No, but that's where you can use your skills as a voiceover announcer, Dave.
Yeah, we can find one around here that can do the trick.
Yes.
But I tried to modify the video a bit to get closer shots and mix it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Thanks to whoever it is who posted the original.
So yeah, I mean, some of it is clips that I shot, because I was actually sitting closer than that other guy who we found. I was like third row center. But the problem, of course, was that they had things on far stage left, far stage right, and center, and sometimes you weren't sure what was going on where, and you didn't want to miss anything cool. But for me, what I focused on when I was shooting footage, I didn't shoot the whole play myself, but I knew that there were certain key moments, like the chest burster, like when the egg attacks, things like that, or when the full size alien appears. So those were the moments that I made sure I got really good footage of. So
David, does your sound equipment have the ability to strip the music from the voice?
To a point, it's still not really rocket science. It's difficult to do because the same frequencies the music in, which is usually pretty wide, other things land in.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
You can take the music out and have it mostly gone, but it sounds a little fragmented.
Okay.
Yes, and again for the
there's ways to get around it, but it's not.
Check out when it's not recorded cleanly.
That's for sure.
right.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know what we're talking about, a year before last, the high school in North Bergen, New Jersey, put on Alien as their high school play, and they did 2 performances thinking it would just be seen by the parents and fly under the radar, but then it went viral, and Ridley Scott loved it and Sigourney Weaver loved it, so they were able to put on one final performance, which I flew out to advise the kids about how to have a career in Hollywood, and Sigourney Weaver showed up to introduce the play, and that was just great. In fact, the helmet that Ripley wears, the kids made everything from scratch: the alien suit, the chest burster, the 15-foot long space jockey, all the spacesuits, everything just from scraps. They had no money. And so the Ripley helmet, space helmet, that white one, Sigourney Weaver signed it, which was really great, really cool. And Steve Defendini, the art teacher, is going to be sending me a couple of the alien spacesuits they made. So that is going to be a thrill and a half. I can't tell you. That's probably my favorite spacesuit design. It was designed by Mobius, the great French artist Jean Giraud, and it's just a great design. I also, of course, love the spacesuits in 2001: A Space Odyssey, but I think the spacesuits in Alien would edge it out a little bit to be the first position. So let's see. But the point is, I've just posted the entire play on Mr. Sci-Fi, so you can watch the entire play, including Sigourney Weaver's intro. So really fun.
And there are a lot of other videos on YouTube that They have close-ups of the costumes from backstage. Adam Savage does a whole thing on rebuilding the costumes. So
Yes.
it got a lot of mileage out of the little play.
They did a great job. They did a phenomenal job, and again, this speaks to the fact that it was that they made it from scratch. If they had just gone to a store and bought something, if one of the students had been had a dad who was a billionaire or something, it wouldn't have had the charm, because it was the ingenuity of how they pulled these effects off, particularly the chest burster with this enormous shower of blood. It was just great. It was just really, really, really fun. So I'm very, very glad I went. So let's see. So I guess Adam, I think you're next on my screen.
All right. I can take my turn.
Cool.
So hi guys, I'm Adam Sartain, actor, voice actor with 75 different voices, accents, and impressions. And I'm an associate producer on Space Command.
Good.
And so this week I've been doing a lot of Space Command stuff and working on upcoming things.
Yes.
And also I've got a meeting on Friday about a potential voiceover gig, so that's fun.
Great.
Apparently it's like an animated pilot or something like that. So he said 18,000 words, and I'm like, that sounded like a book.
Yeah.
So then I
odd.
quoted him, for what a book would, because he asked me for a price quote. And I quoted him, I looked up what the industry standard is for 18,000 words. And I based my quote off of that.
Cool.
And he called me up, and he was like, "Oh, it's yeah." So it wasn't the exact word count. So I'll know more on Friday, and
cool.
then I just got in a new episode of 1 Minute History, which I'm going to be narrating.
Great.
So keep them busy.
Cool. So is there anything you need at this stage?
No, I'm doing pretty good right now.
Great. Well, that's great. Well, 3 cheers, Adam. Yay. So I see that Judy Beecher has joined us. I know you're in New York, Judy, if you wanted to take your turn.
Are you there, Judy?
If she's there.
Nope.
We're not seeing it. There she is. Yeah. Hi, Judy.
Hi. We know you're in New York. Poor thing. Okay.
Yes, go for it.
Hold on, I'm on the phone as well. So
Look out.
Hi, you guys. How is everyone?
Great.
Good.
It's actually been really gorgeous in New York. It's been like in the 70s.
Wow.
Here.
Cool.
So it's been really wonderful. Gosh, I've been working on trying to get my documentary. I'm making a documentary about my mom, a hidden child in the Holocaust, for those who don't know me. So I'm trying to shoot. They're selling the house where my grandparents' house, where my mother was raised. And so I've been trying to pull this shoot together, and all these things are coming out. Things. I found a DP, but now my sister's getting a COVID vaccine, and it's all this stuff. So I've been working on trying to pull that together and, schedule a date and get the right DP, and watching movies and trying to see who I wanted to have shoot it. And I got interviewed for the Sacramento Jewish Film Festival with Renee Taylor and Lainey Kazan and Karina Smirnoff. We did an interview a few days ago for that this past weekend. I'm getting interviewed for Film Daily. I'm just writing. They sent me these amazing questions, these big, long. It's going to be like a 10-page interview, which really great questions. So that's going to be fun. And I'm doing. So Tango Shalom is showing in Miami. Tango Shalom is a feature film, which I'm the lead actress, one of the lead actors, and executive produced as well. And so that's showing at the Miami Film Festival next, and I'm doing an interview for that on Friday. So it's been good, and I've been really trying to just get all this stuff done. I want to I want to take a writing class. I don't know if you guys have any suggestions because I have different ideas for pilots and for screenplays, and so I really want to, I've written stuff, but I really want to kind of hone my skills a little bit.
Sure. What I would suggest, among the things I would suggest, first of all, make sure the person who's teaching it has actually written and sold the whatever you want to learn how to write, like pilots or features or whatever. You might look into seeing if the Writers Guild has any kind of classes that members of other guilds can sign on to, because since you're in SAG, there might be kind of like a thing where they have like it's open to like other like DGA and SAG as well. So I would check that, because that's going to be real writers.
What we did.
What about Writers Boot Camp?
No. Those are mainly people coming out of prison and rehab and and homeless people. They scavenge. Like they've emptied out Echo Park, so now they're all teaching at the boot camp. No, I'm joking.
But we did
UCLA Extension.
Well, no extension of any university.
Yeah,
including UCLA, of any university that hires professional writers.
Yeah.
Who actually know how to do it, because the people who have never actually sold, I don't think it's 100%, but it's a high percent. They've never sold because they don't really know what they're talking about.
Yeah, right.
So what we did was we found out it was UCLA, but there's other universities,
right,
since it's online anyway.
Right.
And so we found out who were the writers we liked, and made sure that these were classes that would take us all the way through a draft.
Yes.
Not just talk about theory.
Right. But actually you write a script.
And we would take,
yes,
because you can drop a class after one session without paying for it.
Yes.
We made sure that we would take 2 identical classes, because they were writers who were teachers, and they were writers who would strut.
Right.
And where you wouldn't feel safe and you wouldn't feel comfortable.
Right. You want someone who's going to be nurturing and supportive and helpful.
And on your beam. And so I think the online classes with actual professional writers whose work you like.
Right.
And then you find out if their personalities match their work, or if they're sort of a little bit less than ideal as human beings.
Yes.
And then you land those classes, because even if you're as good a writer as they are in the end, you get to finish what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's important. Finishing.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So anything else?
Another little thing I've been having a difficulty with, not difficulty, but I did this mass mailing for agents. And somebody gave me a list of New York agents. I did a mass mailing. It didn't quite work properly. And it sent out, it didn't put their names on it. So and I looked back, and it just said it was 800 agents, and it just said hi, blank, But for some reason, I sent out the first batch when my film, I had a screening of the film, and I said, it's showing tonight from 5 to this, watch my film, and I'm doing all these other things, and I'm on this, blah, blah, blah. And so all these people opened it the first time, and I got, a bunch of responses. The second time it also sent out without it, and it wasn't, it was after the thing was playing. So I didn't have like a hook really, like watch my film tonight, for them to come in on. So I'm trying to think of what a good hook is I need to get someone quickly. This is like my time to get a good agent, because I have so much going on. I find if you have a suggestion, agent wise.
My experience is that when you have a gig that you can bring them, that they can commission, that's a great way of starting. So in other words, let's say you've just been cast in something. You just send an email to the agent you want saying, I've got a gig, happy to let you take the commission, love to talk, because again, that incentivizes them to answer you, because there's money involved. It means that
if I get it without an agent.
Yes, but the point is, yes, you're giving 10% of that gig to that agent without them having done anything, but it greatly increases the chances of their answering you, because there's
right. I'm saying that's if I didn't get the job through another agent.
Right, exactly, yes.
Yeah.
If it's something that came your way yourself. But
Right.
But the fact you've got a lot going on is very good.
yeah.
What would be the best way for her to link something?
What about with this article? So the article, the interview that I'm doing right now,
Sure.
with Film Daily.
Right.
Maybe
yes.
it's something I can.
Yes, like get a load of me. Absolutely, sure. And yes. I mean,
I can send them a link to the art once it comes out, saying, "Hey, this just came out."
Yeah, ain't I something? Yeah, ain't I something? So yeah. Actors can talk. Yes, absolutely. I mean, anything is worth trying, and it's sort of like yes. So yeah, absolutely, because that's news. If there's an interview with you in the press, that's news. So yes. So anything else for now, Judy?
No, that's it.
Okay.
I'm going to have to pop off at 10 my time because I have
Sure.
a Tango Shalom conference call.
Well, there you go.
So I'm just going to quietly sneak out.
Okay.
At 10.
Okay.
Well, great. 3 cheers. Yay. Judy Beecher, ladies and gentlemen. So, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Yes. Our next question is from Daniel Ring.
Hello, Daniel.
He wants to know, what are your thoughts on Star Trek fan films?
Well,
especially that one with Sulu, the World Enough in Time.
Yes.
Made that was
I
amazing.
think that's a brilliant piece of work, and whoever co-wrote it and executive produced it and directed it is a genius. That was me, of course, and with Elaine co-directing it with me. And I was, I think the fan films, I really like the spirit behind fan films. There's an enormous spectrum of quality, and the best ones come very, very, very close to being on a level with the actual show in terms of Star Trek. And then there's some great Star Wars one. Pink 5 was one that Trey Stokes did that was really, really quite something. And many of the best ones are done by people who are actively working in the industry and have actors from the original show. So we got to work with George Takei. It was terrific. We cast Christina Moses before she was a star. Now she, of course, is a lead on A Million Little Things on ABC. I'm very proud of it. It was a lot of work, and it took a solid year to edit and finish, but it was well worth it. I don't regret it at all. It led directly to me doing Space Command, because it showed that we could do something totally without a studio or a network. I had final cut on it, so not a frame could be touched without my say-so, and I needed that. I hired an editor for a year. Sadly, it was before I knew Dave Edison, so it was much more of a behavioral problem, let us say, but he was talented. He was a talented editor. And it was, I have no regrets with that. It was spectacular, and to work with George was amazing. And Michael Reeves and I got nominated for the Hugo and the Nebula, and we won the TV Guide Award. And it's one of the things I'm very proud of having done. And so yeah, thanks for the question. So I guess Stephen Galber, you're next on my screen. So why don't you take your turn?
I didn't even read my second script I sent you all last week.
No.
I started it. I haven't finished it yet. We can, maybe I can send you some thoughts about it, but I wanted to, get a little further into it, but I started it. So yes.
Great. I think I got. And what classes could I take for free, or where were you saying at the Writers Guild?
Oh, that's a different thing. I don't even know if the Writers Guild has writing courses, but I was just suggesting that if they might have something where members of other guilds like SAG or the DGA could also take them, but that's just a guess. I don't know.
David, are you aware of any groups at the table that are mutual self-help groups for writers? Do you know of any?
No, writers are like. It's interesting because I'm a writer too. I can't say that this is a criticism of the writers without including myself. They're very kind of introverted loner people.
Yes.
They don't go out in the world much. But
No.
There are writers groups.
Yeah.
I don't know of any tables writers groups per se, but you could definitely put a table email out there and ask if there were any writers groups that you could be a part of, and I bet you would find somebody doing that.
Yeah.
Or you could go one step farther and form your own writers group. You don't have to be an expert writer to have a group.
Yes.
In fact, you could maybe start a group because you wanted to find expert writers that would come and guest lecture or step in now and then or whatever and help you.
Yes.
Do you have reading yet, Dave?
I don't have it. I did not get it. So
I sent it to the table.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't look at the table emails
And-
very
and
often,
Thane-
I have to
Yeah,
admit.
neither do I, because I mean there's so many of them, and
Yeah.
Right,
All right.
Thane-
Well, I'll see if I can maybe Mark and forward it to me.
Thank you.
No, I can't. Thane has his hand up.
There is a table writers group in West Valley once a month. I think it's the first or second Wednesday.
Yeah.
Comes up on the list. It's now doing it Zoom. I went in person a couple of times and haven't had a chance to do the Zoom. So
we're in the South Valley. We're in the West Valley. I'm from the West Valley too.
They meet at the library in Reseda or somewhere out there, but it's on. It shows up on the table mailing list, and I think it's the second Wednesday of the month.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't live in the valley anymore anyway.
But you can do it on Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Probably
again,
being on Zoom nowadays.
yeah. But again, I mean, it's like if you just Googled free screenwriting classes or free comedy writing classes.
Well, it's not. These aren't classes. These
No.
are
But I'm
groups.
saying one could Google that
Uh-huh.
and probably find things. Because now that
Mark,
what?
there's someone in the chat here. Marilyn Anderson has got a suggestion.
Okay, great.
So check out that.
I have
Yeah,
Marilyn.
roadmap writers. Right now, they're having a lot of really great webinars with companies and executives that are very useful. I mean, I've been in the WJ a long time, and even I find these very interesting because they're with execs and people who are really out there doing it now.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. Well, great. Anything else, Stephen?
Nope.
Okay, cheers, yay. So, Adam, another Mr. Sci-Fi question, perhaps.
Yes. Let's. Here's one from Bob Rich, who always has some fine.
Yes,
fine
hi, Bob.
questions.
A man among men.
Yes. His question is: in TV, film, and literature, what are your favorite stories of redemption, where someone rises above their past and becomes a better version of themselves?
Wow. Blade Runner's a good one. Aliens is a good one. There's, I mean, anything. I mean, most stories that are stories of redemption, if they're done well, work. Because you have to have a character arc of some kind. Does anything come to mind for you?
But Book of Eli.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I suppose so.
Well, it's a funny thing to say, but I really like the redemption of the robot in iRobot.
Yes, that's good. And
There's the Rotary movies. The Rotary movies are all kind of one way or the other about that.
yes. And
For
so
redemption stories, there's always Space Command redemption.
yes,
Yes.
there is. Yes, exactly. And yes, and that really is the best of all of them, I think. And if we're going to be patting ourselves on the back, it's very funny. Rod Serling once said that when you go to Hollywood, you hear a deep thumping like a metronome, and it's the sound of everyone in Hollywood patting themselves on the back. So it's pretty good. And he was specifically speaking of the plethora of awards that were given out, and he was very, very self-deprecating and extremely. I mean, he was just really great. He was very funny, and his humor. He had a great gift of language, as we all know, and did not spare himself. He was very charming in that way. So let's see. So Dave Edison, how about your turn?
Sure, why not? Hello, everyone. Hello over there, Mr. Sci-Fi.
Yay.
I'm Dave Edison. I'm your humble editor on Space Command
Yes.
and what have you. Been just another week chipping away. We put up the Alien piece. I got some stuff out to David Bartlett so his VFX team could move forward, and I spent a little time doing some high quality VFX myself this week. I put the glow on Dorn Nevin's eyes. So Doug Jones, as an android, his eyes light up from time to time when he's computing, when he's calculating, when he's robo thinking. So his eyes light up from time to time, and it's a tricky little thing to do, and there are people who do it better than I do, but I think I do it okay.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, so there's that. I see. Well, I see she's not there at the moment, but I sent a video out this past weekend. I've been doing a couple of other little things on the weekend, and one of them is that our table members, Michael Charles Lopez, wrote and appears in a film that is directed by Samir Yardeen, and it's a little 20 some odd than others minute
Cool
drama, and I patched that together. Not just editing, patched it together, because sometimes you got to realize focus is for wimps. So and really, who needs a camera to stay steady? So
Yes.
So I patched that together, and it's a nice little story, and I sent it out to those two fellas to take a look at it, but I also sent it out to Bonnie Janofsky, who's there somewhere in that picture, I imagine, probably taking care of her new cat.
Yes.
And Bonnie will be doing the music on that. So
Wow.
It's going to be an interesting little project. Oh, there we are. And so hopefully we'll get some kind of festival notice and what have you. So what's coming up, Mark? What are we looking forward to on the Space Command front?
Well, we actually have a name for you, interestingly enough, which Mitch Suskin and I agreed to today. We both agreed that you are the Iron Man of Space Command. Okay?
Right.
So there you go.
Something's clogging my thrusters.
Yes. Now,
Iron Man nonetheless.
Now, when you were talking about focus, interestingly enough, one of my favorite things that a heckler ever said was when I was in college, a very sort of milquetoast kind of professor got up onto the stage and someone in the audience yelled out, "Focus." Which was really good. And I remember one time I was in an audience when the science fiction writer Ed Bryant was being heckled, and he scowled down at the guy and he said, "I hope when he came by your place, the brain fairy left a quarter." So that was very good. So we have a ton of stuff coming up, Dave. We're working on 102 and 103, and we started shooting 104. These are episode numbers for Space Command. We're working on the Sweet Haven table read, all sorts of stuff, So
you done a very nice rewrite on 104,
yeah,
103 actually as well to revise the framing story.
Yes.
Because for some insane reason,
yes,
Mira Furlan will not be in it.
Very sad, very sad. We lost Mira to West Nile virus a few weeks ago, and it's really a terrible, terrible thing. But thank God we got to have so much of her wonderful acting in Space Command. She's just one of a kind, and I'm so glad we got to know her. And yeah. But no, we just got a ton of work ahead of us, and we're going to be doing that 1984 thing, that we've been talking about, and for Mr. Sci-Fi. Yeah, lots
You
of.
got to send me more locations to put glow on.
Yes.
Dorn Evans' eyes.
Yes, exactly.
So does the Iron Man of Space Command, does that supersede, does that ditch the long-suffering editor of Space Command?
Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, you've gone so far beyond suffering. It's it's no longer worth even commenting on it.
I've gone so far beyond it. I now have enough to share it with others.
Yeah, I mean, it's like what happens.
in my suffering.
Yeah, it's like what happens to Keir Delay in 2001 toward the end. He just transcends that state of being, and certainly you have. So yeah.
It's a good thing because you started out as kind of the Eeyore of Space Command.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Now you've risen, you continue to rise. Look at it that way.
It's been.
I'm not a Eeyore. I'm the voice of reality.
Yes. Yes, but you're.
Mark Lee's favorite word.
No, it's
Mark
true.
Lee's favorite word.
It's true.
But a T-shirt, reality with a circle and a slash.
That's right. Exactly. But no, we're doing.
Advice, and this reality sucks.
We're doing great. So okay, cool. Anything else, Dave?
All right, everyone.
Yay! Cheers.
Welcome to spring.
Yay! So, Adam, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
Yes. There was a question from Arkansas Big Dog Hensley, but I can't quite make it out.
Huh.
It's a little confusing.
Okay.
Something about
Was it written in crayon?
Well,
No, not at all.
It says, what do you think about using these small 18-foot by 20-foot B for a recording set like our scene or even spaceships if you get the stuff? I don't understand what it means.
No, I think no. Yeah, I
Let's
don't.
go to
Maybe you can put some clarification.
Yes, clarify that, big dog. You bet.
I'd love to read your question. But for now, let's go to Kevin Scott 76.
Sure.
Who asks any knowledge about the Buck Rogers new production?
Well, first of all, when it's Kevin James, what was the name? Kevin James.
Kevin Scott 76.
Yes, so that's they had to make 75 of them before they got it right, and 76 they really nailed it. So that's good. I don't know anything about the new Buck Rogers movie. I'm no fan of the Gil Gerard TV show. I thought that was. My favorite thing about the Gil Gerard Buck Rogers was when one TV critic referred to him as a Polish sausage in a spacesuit, which I thought was great. Buster Crabbe was wonderful as Buck Rogers in the 30s. He had been an Olympic gold medalist swimmer, as was Johnny Weissmuller, who played Tarzan. Buck Rogers, of course, was a comic strip that debuted in the 1920s, and Ray Bradbury collected those as a kid. So it goes way back, but I don't know anything about the new one. But there's usually when they do Buck Rogers or Flash Gordon, they just get it wrong. They just mess it up. And though some people are, of course, huge fans of the Flash Gordon movie that was done by Giorgio Moroder, I think, and it does certainly have its camp element with Sam Jones. Yeah, Sam Jones, exactly. So let's see who's next on the list. I guess Carol, you're next on my list.
I was in the middle of writing something to my darling friend Marilyn Anderson. Look what I had when we were in Godspell cast on in New York.
Wow, there you go. Look at that.
Oh my God.
Wow.
There's me and Jesus in the middle, and then Marilyn sitting right there. She was so good in it.
Long time ago.
Yes, nice to see you. Is that great? It's so nice to see you. God, what a trip. I'll put my phone numbers, both of them in the chat for you, Marilyn.
I have them, actually.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah.
It's so great. Wow, it's been a trip. All right, so Carol Field, I guess actress first in this setting, very available for table reads. Just marking a lane in terms of Marie calendars. I know a lot of people hybriding when they go back in. They're going to go to the situation and bring laptops with them.
Yes. Well, we'll see what happens. We'll play it by ear. I mean, again, we're all making it up as we go along, and so we'll see. But we'll make it work.
How did you both feel after your Pfizer shot, your second shot?
It was Moderna. The first shot was fine. Second shot, Elaine was fine. No symptoms. I felt a little off for about a day. A little bit of fever, a little bit of aches and pains, but not pains really, just aches. And a little floaty, but otherwise I was fine. And now, of course, we can, we're like superheroes. We can go out among the great unwashed and wash them. So but go ahead, please, Carol.
Yeah, I'm just a little nervous to take it, but I promise it will. I have a question for you, Mark.
Yes.
Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, One Step Beyond. Now, Cole presents Thriller. They were all on at the same time.
Yes.
None of them were as good as Twilight Zone. Was it because of scripts?
It was, Serling was really, he was the top writer working in television at the time. I mean, he ultimately won 6 Emmys. He was just astonishing. And he had a great gift for the half-hour form. And but beyond that, Ray Bradbury recommended 3 of his proteges to Serling as the core of the writing, the contributing writers, Richard Matheson, Charles Beaumont, and George Clayton Johnson. And so, because what you needed were writers who could not only write science fiction, fantasy, and horror, but also writers who could write television scripts. And that's a rare combination. But they all had. I mean, both Matheson and Beaumont were writing TV shows before Twilight, so they were writing things like, Wanted, Dead or Alive, those kind of shows. Outer Limits is actually a show I like very, very much. It had Harlan Ellison as one of the writers, who did a great job. It was a little more hit and miss than Twilight Zone, but it has its own voice. And it was one of the main writers on that show was Joe Stefano, who was the screenwriter on Psycho. Years later, I worked with him on Swamp Thing. which was not as wonderful an experience as I would have liked. But Joe clearly was a much stronger writer back in the Outer Limits days. But and his boss, did a great job on that show. There's a book called the Outer Limits Companion by Dave Scow that's really a great overview of that show, and I was so glad that Dave wrote it so I didn't have to. But it's One Step Beyond was a very different kind of show. I'm not as fond of it. There was also the Hitchcock show, which is extremely variable in terms of quality. Boy, some of the best episodes are terrific. The one thing that's fun about all of those shows is that back then, when there were only 3 networks, you got to see the same actors on every show. So you'd see John Fiedler on a Twilight Zone, and then you'd see him on, Dragnet or whatever. You'd see, Nehemiah Persoff, or, insert name here. There were like dozens and dozens of wonderful actors, many of them New York trained, who you'd see over and over. They were like family members, and they'd go. So you'd see them on a Hitchcock, and then Ralph Meeker, those kind of guys, and or Robert Duvall was just coming up at that point. Around the time he did To Kill a Mockingbird, which was his first movie, but he was great in both Twilight Zone and Outer Limits. So it's the ensemble of actors was just spectacular in that period. So I didn't mean to make a speech, but
It's okay because Twilight Zone was like religious to me growing up. The other
Yes.
shows are fun.
yes.
I guess it was script, comes down to script or something.
Well,
I'm not sure.
There were
Okay,
it always has to. It starts with script, but also Serling was really the first showrunner, and so he had power over how the show came out, and that was very, very important. And and also here's 2 things people don't know about Rod Serling. He was very short. He was 5'5", and he was Jewish. So that's there you go. Okay, but so go on, Carol, please.
That's okay. I don't know if I brought this up last time, but I picked up an old Hollywood Reporter, and there's this interview in there of Tom Hanks, Gary Oldman, William Dafoe, like 6 people
Yeah.
who you've all seen for years. And throughout the interview, there was a consistent thread of they were all talking about how they're so nervous when they go to the set. Here are these, because acting is not deductive. You have to bring what you bring.
Yes.
But I thought here are these like kind of quasi giants, and they're nervous when they go to the set. So I decided I'm not going to be nervous anymore.
No.
It's friggin' ripoff.
It was funny when you said I picked up an old Hollywood Reporter. I thought you were going to say, and I took him home and gave him chicken soup. So
That's very funny.
yeah.
I saw your smirk. I wonder where it was coming from.
Yeah.
That's very
Yeah.
funny.
There's
Very
many.
chicken soup.
Yes. So
So I just want to tell everyone that let's not be nervous anymore about anything. It's a big friggin' ripoff with a
Yes.
bunch of crap. Okay, and then one really nice thing is in terms of my writing side, I signed with a new literary manager, and I hooked her up with this producer who was taking my first book around.
Great.
So thanks to you, because you said it's a good idea to do that. So
Yes.
they will be meeting hopefully soon.
Great.
And there's safety in numbers, and I wish everyone well on this project. But it's kind of exciting to see if there's any movement. And it's kind of exciting. So, and I come here and I get very inspired,
Good.
which is great. So I can't thank you enough, and I'm done.
Yay! 3 cheers. That's great. And
So regarding Mr. Sci-Fi question,
Yes.
jump in here with you mentioned that a couple of writers, that George Clayton Johnson and whom else were mentors of Bradbury's?
Proteges. Bradbury was an amazing guy. He had mentors himself when he was coming up as a young writer. Henry Kuttner, Lee Brackett, great writers of science fiction who mentored him. He was a member of LOSFAS, which was the Los Angeles Science Fantasy Association, and he was friends with Forrest Ackerman and Ray Harryhausen, who were both around his age. Forey was a couple years older. But then he mentored Beaumont, who was here in California, and Matheson, long distance, who he was in New York at the time. And actually, Beaumont's son, Chris, gave me copies of the correspondence between Bradbury and Beaumont when Bradbury was teaching him how to write. And those are amazing letters, and phenomenal. And some of them are even on Royal Hibernian Hotel stationery in Dublin when Ray was in Ireland writing Moby Dick for John Huston. So it's for the movie script, and so it's just phenomenal. But Ray, basically what happened with Twilight Zone was Rod threw open the doors, the gates for open submissions. They got like 500 script submissions, and none of them were any good. And So he was despairing. So he called Ray Bradbury and he said, "Look, I don't know anything about science fiction. Can you, what can you tell me?" Because Ray was going to be one of the major Twilight Zone writers, and Ray said, "Come over to the house," and he took him down into his office in the basement, and he pulled out 4 books. He said, "Read these." One was by Matheson, one was by Beaumont, one was by John Collier, a British writer of short stories, and one was by Ray Bradbury. And so Rod hired Beaumont and Matheson, and they did one story adaptation of a story by John Collier. Though clearly Collier's story Evening Primrose was a strong inspiration to Serling with the After Hours, the thing about the mannequins coming to life, and but yeah, so Ray's influence on Twilight Zone was major, 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 and then they had a falling out, and I talked about that at length on Mr. Sci-Fi.
I meant to say protege. I said mentor.
Yeah.
We'll fix that.
Well, yeah, you're
but,
slipping.
But the question I had is, following on that is, we think of these guys, Johnson and George Clinton
Yes.
Johnson and Ray Bradbury, living long lives, and we picture them as old men. But this was in their prime. I mean, how old was Ray, and how old were the people he was mentoring?
Well, the interesting thing particularly was how old Serling was. Serling was around 30, 31. I mean, he was young. And, even though he'd been in World War II, he joined the paratroopers right out of high school during World War II. And so, I talk about those young old men of that generation who'd been through the war. George was slightly younger than Matheson and Beaumont. They were like late 20s, early 30s. I mean, when George wrote Kick the Can, he was something like 29. So and he had short hair. He wasn't a hippie yet. There weren't hippies yet. And so if you look in the Twilight Zone Companion, there's a photo of George on the set of Nothing in the Dark with Robert Redford, and he looks like he's in a suit jacket. He has short hair. He's smoking a cigarette. And Beaumont, unlike George lived to be an old guy. He lived into his 80s. Ray lived into his early 90s. Norman Corwin, who was a mentor to both, an inspiration to both Serling and Bradbury, he lived to be 101. I knew him well. And but sadly, and Matheson lived to be an old man as well, but sadly, Charles Beaumont started coming down with the symptoms of presenile dementia at 33, and he died at 38, totally senile, and he looked like 90 years old. William Nolan said, like his character, Walter Jameson, he just dusted away. And that's a character in Twilight Zone who ends up turning to dust because he's immortal and gets shot and blah, blah, blah. So it's, there's a lot. I mean, there's a book you might want to read. It's called The Twilight Zone Companion. I hear it's very good.
Yeah, that's not bad. There's a new edition, I hear.
There is, and an audiobook too. But I only read the introduction. I don't read the whole book because life is too short.
Yeah, when I met George Clayton Johnson a few times, I had him sign a book that I bought. He had a book signing of his for his Twilight Zone stories.
Yes.
And I never mentioned to him. That just didn't dawn on me at the time. But I watched the first one. I was a little kid, maybe, I don't know. I guess I was 10 at the time, not that little kid. But I watched the first episode of Star Trek when it came on.
Yes.
With the Man Trap, with
yes.
that salt vampire.
Yes.
Which I didn't see coming and freaked me out as a kid. And I said, well, I don't need to watch any more of this show. And didn't watch it again until the reruns, when, of course, I became a huge fan.
Yes.
I should have mentioned that to George.
Yes.
That he was so good, he kept me away from the series.
Yes, and George wrote that episode, of course. And but great. Well, anyway, we digress. So I guess we'll skip a Mr. Sci-Fi question because that just was one. And let's see who's next on my screen. How about Miss Marilyn? You've been around for a little while here, so go for it. Oh, you have to unmute.
Okay, so when I was just introducing myself and everything.
And what you're up to and what you need. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, I'm Marilyn Anderson, and I'm a writer for a long time. I wrote for Murphy Brown and Fame, and actually was on a show, Carol and Company. I was on staff with Carol Burnett,
cool.
Jeremy Piven, and Richard Kind. And the way I know Mark is from many, many eons ago when I did 3 episodes of Friday the 13th, the series.
Yes.
And Mark was on staff, and he was one of the people who hired me.
Yes,
so
yes.
thank you, Mark, for that.
You're welcome.
And I have a movie that I wrote, produced called How to Beat a Bullet slowly. And I've also been writing books. I have one book, How to Live Like a Millionaire When You're a Million Short. My first book was Never Kiss a Frog, A Girl's Guide to Creatures from the Dating Swamp. And I have a new mystery thriller that just came out several months ago called Dishonor Thy Father. So I work in all different mediums. And actually, tonight, before this was on, and what gave me idea, oh, I got to sign in tonight, was I just put a notice up because I have a short that I'd like to make into a short film. I'm not a director, although I have lots of ideas. But I want to find a director, preferably a female, because it's a female-oriented little short with two people in one room. It's sort of a thriller with some humor. So I'm looking for a female director who would want to sort of team up with me to make this short.
Cool.
So that's one thing I'm looking for. And then I have a lot of movie projects that are out there now. Some are optioned and hopefully will go, and some I'm submitting. And I'd love to try to get a manager again. Over the years, I've had many, many agents. And now it's hard to get an agent because I'm over 40.
Yes.
A little bit, right? And so if anybody knows of a good manager who'd be receptive to somebody who has a lot of projects, a lot of high concept projects, both for film and TV, that's another thing that would be great for me.
Cool. Here's several things. In terms of the female director, you can definitely put that out on the table email. I think you'll get a fair amount of response because there are many female directors who are members of the table. And in terms of the manager, that is a challenge because they've gotten. I was gonna say they've gotten lazy. They really want the sure thing. They want the person like the staff writer they can plug in, over and over and over again. Ageism is definitely a very, very, very strong factor now. I had lunch with Glenn Mazzara before the pandemic. Glenn is a big, showrunner guy, Walking Dead, etc.
I know Glenn.
Yeah, he's a great guy. And I said it was very interesting because there's a Writers Guild Diversity Award, and I won it back in 2014 because age is a category, interestingly enough. And what I saw was very interesting because I think there were 8 or 12 of us who won it that year. And everyone who was younger immediately got agents and managers, and anyone who was over 50, nobody. It was crickets, right? And I said to Glenn, "What's the problem with this? Have you looked into this?" And he said, "Yes, he had. He talked to the heads of agencies, and they said, here's why we don't take older clients. We're trying to shape someone who can become a big moneymaker for us. And with TV writers, we want to guide them to become showrunners, and they might have 20 years ahead of them. But if someone's in their 50s or 60s, they have no future essentially, and they're basically they might as well lie down in the grave and have the shovels cover them over like at a Jewish funeral, and I said to Glenn, well, what the Writers Guild should do is have a program like the internship program, but for older writers. But they would be on a show. The guild would pay all or half of it. But they would be guaranteed a script. They would be guaranteed at least one script. And because again, if they're on staff, if they have an on-staff credit, if they get a new writing credit that gets produced, then they've got a little legitimacy. But yes, but but it's a problem that the Writers Guild has not in any way addressed. And and so I don't really have a solution other than to say, something I do recommend at the table is managers. To be an agent, you need to have a license. There's a whole bunch of things that you have to jump through to make that legal. Managers, you just have to take out a business license. So you could, if you have a friend who's good on the phone, you could start a management company called Imaginary Management, and you're off and running. Now, a way you can further legitimize that company is there are a number of Oscar and Emmy-winning writers who cannot get arrested, and they've got scripts. And so if you reached out to them and said, hey, Imaginary Management would be happy to submit your scripts for you, and if anything clicks, we'll take a commission. Many would say yes to that because they've got scripts in the drawers. And so then you could say Imaginary Management has a great slate of clients, most of whom are Emmy and Oscar winners. And so that would get attention from the producers. And
I was in acting class as a director for many years, and the actors would often team up with each other to become each other's managers.
Yes.
So actor A would manage actor B and vice versa.
Right.
They both had fax machines, they both had business cards, all of us set up, and they were right in the same room together.
Yes.
So every time they would get a submission from the other person, they would send out for it.
Right.
And it worked like gangbusters. It was great. And from that, they even got agents.
Yes. Yes. But again, that's one possibility. Because again, the lovely part about me being able to raise millions of dollars from my fans is that I don't need to ask permission anymore. I don't have to audition anymore. I write it, I shoot it, it goes out into the world. Millions of people see it, they love it. It's such a nice feeling. It's freedom. I'm sort of the John Cassavetes of science fiction television at the moment. It's like we all want Space Command to sell to one of the big guys like Netflix or Amazon, but millions of people are already watching it. Millions of people are loving it, and the actors. It's super easy to get name talent, and it's super easy to affiliate with established showrunners. The only people who don't give me respect are the agents and managers. And really, do I want the respect of people that I loathe? No. So it's like.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I have to say, I had one script that was optioned 8 times by Hollywood and never made it, so I just went out and raised the money and I made it myself. And
Yes.
I'm very proud of it.
Yes.
I had to take a few zeros off the end, but it's on all the different platforms. Plus, we sold 50,000 units of the DVD to Walmart.
That's
so
great.
That worked well. So,
Yes.
I have my projects with indies, and I will continue to try to do that. But obviously, it would be nice to have somebody else pushing it.
Yes.
I do have an agent who's working on one of my films and one of my scripts. And the funny thing is, I think I am better at getting it out than he is.
It's true. It's true.
I'm the one who's telling. So I understand. But
Yeah.
I thought I would just bring it up. But I
Yes.
know that's an issue,
But,
obviously.
but again, it's like you try stuff and you see what works. I mean, I often say to people, do a podcast where you interview managers and agents, and that'll get relationships going with them, and eventually you'll land one. It's because it's a different conversation, because they're so often bombarded with everyone and anyone saying, I have a script, I'd like you to rep me, that it becomes white noise. And so you have to change the equation. And whether it's doing interviews for articles or a book or a documentary or a podcast, any of it changes the equation and increases the chances, So that's, I mean, relationship is so interesting. When people know you and like you, it's so much easier to make stuff happen. My last book I sold on a 2-word title, not even a proposal. And that's the book I'm finishing now. But it's like, it was because I knew.
What's the title?
It's called Greenlighting Yourself. And it's a how-to book. But the thing was that because I knew book editors, I could just email them and say, hey, you want a book with this title? And one of them came back. I only emailed 2 editors at 2 different houses. And one came back and said, yeah. And it was a sale.
Actually, book agents are much more receptive
Yes.
than literary agents.
It's
I mean,
true.
That's a fact. I had a humor book, and I picked the agent that I most wanted, and they got back to me in 2 minutes and said, I'll rep you.
Yes.
So, I mean,
Well,
book agents are definitely more receptive.
Well, the reason, I'll tell you why, Marilyn. Book agents love books. Hollywood agents love money. So, that's the difference. I mean,
Interesting.
I mean, if you want an agent in Hollywood, you need to have a 6-figure cash flow, or 7 figures better, before you even pick up the phone. And whereas a book agent, if you've got a book that they love, they'll try to move heaven and earth to get it in print. And so it's a very different game. So anything else for now?
That's all at the moment.
Okay, yay! 3 cheers.
I invite people to look at my great books. And How to Live Like a Millionaire tells you how to save thousands of dollars and enjoy your life more. So,
Great.
Or if you like mysteries, try Dishonor Thy Father.
Great.
And it's dishonorthyfather.com
Mhm.
or howtolivelikeamillionaire.com.
Great. Thank you, Marilyn. It's good to see you. And by the way, we're doing a simulcast with my YouTube channel, Mr. Sci-Fi. So when I ask Adam for the Mr. Sci-Fi questions, it's because the table is on one screen and Mr. Sci-Fi, my YouTube channel, is on another. So and we're closing in on 90,000 subscribers, which is great. So and many millions of hits. So Adam, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
Yes. So we finally have clarification on the Arkansas
Yes.
Hensley
Great.
question.
I knew he could pull it out.
Yeah, he was referring to the size of a room for shooting in.
Yes.
So he wants to know, what do you think about using a small 18-foot by 21-foot room or building for recording, for shooting like a bar scene or even a spaceship scene, if you have the
Well,
right.
the smaller the actors, the smaller the room. For one thing. But seriously, and in Star Trek, by the way, they have done forced perspective where they had midgets in the background in spacesuits and stuff. On some of the Star Trek movies. So that actually does work. But the real answer is work with what you got. I mean, the great part about a spaceship is you can have a spaceship that looks pretty credible, that doesn't have to be huge. But it just has to be cool looking. I mean, Neil Johnson, one of my favorite things that Neil Johnson ever did was Neil Johnson was a low budget science fiction director, really low budget. And he rented
Is not was. He's
well,
still with us.
well, be that as it may. That's a separate conversation. But the point being that he rented a spaceship at Laurel Canyon Stages that had originally been made for Firefly, the TV show. It wasn't the main ship, but it was another spaceship set. But he needed one more room in that spaceship, so he took his living room at his apartment and turned it into a spaceship set. And he said to me, "Don't tell the landlord." But it was very fun when you'd walk in through his front door, and there was a spaceship set, in his apartment in North Hollywood. So that was very cool. The reality is, work with what you got, do your best. I mean, the biggest decision between what determines whether something gets made or not is the determination to make it. That's it. If you really mean it and nothing is going to stop you, then you'll get stuff done. That's how it works.
What people don't know is we had a second unit going while the main stuff was going on in our main stage.
Yes.
At Pico Rivera, there
Yes.
was something a few hundred yards down the complex, a small green screen studio, and we shot all the individual characters there who ended
Yes.
up as people in huge scenes, and maybe 8-10 feet wide.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Yeah, I was the second unit person.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. And I was the person who dealt with everyone who had to have breakdowns and sob. And,
the actors,
the
not
actors.
not everyone.
Yeah.
You
So we had some really good acting in that room, but I started getting kind of depressed.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
Some of
So
them didn't know they were going to be sobbing when they got there that morning.
Yes.
yeah, Elaine's pretty mean. So Bonnie Janowski, you're next on my screen. Go for it.
Oh, okay. Last week I was saying that I had a concert. One of my works was performed last Saturday.
Yay!
Yay!
From I think attended, yeah. And so it's cool. It went really, really great. They didn't record this one, but I think it's online. The July performance of this, the pieces were recorded, but the composers, we announced, just said a few words about our pieces before they were performed. And this Saturday at 1 o'clock, Sigma Alpha Iota Pasadena Alumni Chapter is having, well, actually, I guess this is from the Long Beach chapter, but there's I put it in the chat, there's a composers panel on Saturday at 1 o'clock, so I'm part of that. And I'm just still working on this big, like 350-page book for a friend of mine who's putting out a composer from early century, a woman composer, black woman composer, Zenobia Perry. So it's a lot of her music, all of her music, I mean, in this book. And just working on some themes for websites still, and probably other things, but definitely fun stuff.
Did you get the cut of Michael's film that I saw?
Oh, I did. I totally forgot about that. Sorry, but that's still not the final.
I'm trying to do that as well.
But yeah, that's still not the lock copy. Sorry, I saw that and then I totally spaced out.
Not the final cut, just the first pass. There's something for you to get an idea what we're going for.
Sorry, thank you for reminding me of that because I actually had forgotten about that.
I've got a new version that I trimmed down even more.
Wow, I know you're doing a lot of work on that. And yeah, there will be Michael's film to work on, and then also this other film we're gradually going back up to speed on on that and working on some dance numbers and all. It's a film musical, and there are probably other things I might be forgetting, but keep me busy. And anybody wanting any kind of music, let me know.
Okay, yay, 3 cheers, Bonnie. Excellent. So, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Yes. Our next question comes from, and I'm guessing at the name here, Ecrosire.
Great.
I don't know. But the question is, what is the best written show currently on television?
I'd say Better Call Saul, frankly. It's a great show. Really, really skilled. In terms of genre, The Expanse is not bad. Not a bad show. It at least has consistency. It at least pays off. For All Mankind is not a bad show. What else? What else would you
I
recommend?
don't know. We've been really watching.
We're watching it. We just started watching Unorthodox, which is if you're into Hasidim or not into Hasidim, it's a very interesting show based on a real life memoir. And the author of that book was just interviewed by Terry Gross, and very interesting life story.
But it's not so much about the Hasidim than women finding the courage to break out of traps, and that's why it was so popular.
Right. It's just there's a wide variety of shows, an enormous number now. The Handmaid's Tale is not a bad. It's a dark show, but a very, very good show. You're not going to exactly have a birthday party around it or whatever. You're not going to. But it's very good. What else? What
We're
else?
being hooked by foreign shows. Huh?
Lots of foreign shows. We watch foreign shows, like things from like Norway, where it's just freezing cold and they find a torso in the water or whatever, and it's those are very entertaining. So that's some of the things off the top of my head. I
Also, I should mention that while they can hear you very well, they're having trouble hearing us.
Oh,
I think if there's a way to maybe move the mic back so that it can catch the speakers from your computer.
Let's see how move it back. So let's see.
Or towards the computer.
I think if we do it maybe like this, they can probably hear you guys better.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, can you hear better? Yeah. Okay, good. Sorry. I mean, I can go back next week to not having a microphone, if that helps. But so let's see. David Bartlett, would you like to take your turn?
And that is better, by the way.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
I'm David Bartlett. I am a filmmaker, a teacher and human rights activist, and a producer of Space Command.
Yay!
Also have set up a studio there and have built many sets, and there are more sets ongoing.
Yes.
I see some very shining faces of past Space Commanders. Notably, what do we have? Oh, there she just arrived just now, Lydia Torres. Is building sets with us right now. Michelle Hart, who rearranged her paid job to come and volunteer.
Yay!
Alumnus, of course, being Christine Laurie, and Thane always helps us out when he can. Bonnie comes out and helps with her. Bonnie has a unique position with Space Command. She's the person in charge of picking stuff up and taking it to Mark's garage.
Great.
She has a minivan, and that makes her very popular with Space Command.
Yay.
So, if you have a minivan, you can join us. Anyway, so my background, I made my first film when I was 10. I started making films in high school and worked in movie theaters until 1980 when I moved to LA, and I started working on really giant movies as people's interns. And I worked on low-budget films as a set carpenter with production designer like James Cameron. His name was Jim at the time, and his fiance, who was little known at the time, Galen Hurd. So that was fun. I then started working in post-production on some very large studio movies. I worked on Pulp Fiction and Speed and Total Recall and Tremors and Point Break and Hoffa, which is a film that I think is underrated. I like that film very much. And I got to work with Danny DeVito, who was the director of Hoffa, and I had a great time with him. He was terrific. Worked with a lot of great directors, but he stands out off the top of my head. And then I started working on independent films of my own and other people's, and I now have 64 Film Festival awards.
Great.
And I'm also in charge of building building sets and running Space Command Studios.
Yay!
And producing the visual effects and the casting and the table readings and anything else that comes along. I managed to get in there somehow. So let's see. Mark encouraged me to tell a news story every week, and this time
You don't have to anymore, David. It's fine. You don't have to tell new stories anymore. I think that we've heard every story that's in your brain. No, you can. No, I'm joking. You can tell a story. Go ahead.
Now, do you have a suggestion of a story you'd like me to tell? How about that?
Yes, I'd like you to tell the story. No, I have nowhere to go with that one. Is there? I mean, it's the one thing I was going to say when you were talking about Hoffa is a great double bill would be Hoffa starring Jack Nicholson with The Irishman, which has which is also about Jimmy Hoffa. That would be very, very fun. And for those who don't know about Hoffa, no one ever found his body. It's to this day they haven't found him. So that's impressive. But if you have an idea for a Hollywood story that we haven't heard, that'd be great. That's fine.
This is kind of because I like to teach, so I kind of combine this into one, like how to be if you are working on a set. So, you work on these films, and sometimes you work on films that have some, unknown actors, and other times actors you've seen around and marquee value, and sometimes there's big stars in these movies.
Yes.
And if you're all heading towards a Hollywood career, that's where you're going. You're going to end up with Nicole Kidman or whatever, whoever's there, they're going to be there. So, I'm not going to give you examples of names of people not to behave like, but I will tell you their behavior. But it's also people who I've loved working with that I would work with again in a heartbeat. I worked on a film. It was called at the time it was called The Tool Shed. It was released as Bad Company. Bad Characters. Disney. It was Lawrence Fishburne, Alan Arkin, and Frank Langella.
Wow.
And when you go out of town on a shoot, they have a night before party where everyone comes and meets each other, and the cast and crew all get to know each other a little bit. Lawrence Fishburne was there, and he came right up to me, and he shook my hand, and he said, "Call me Larry." And I said, "Okay," and I introduced himself. He goes, "Oh, good, that was the editor. Oh, great to meet you." And he was as big and voice and everything you can imagine. I was like, I would do anything for this guy. He's such a nice person. So, and another one was I was on the set of Kiss the Girls, out on the Paramount Ranch in the middle of some very cold night, which is all those ranches are cold. And I met Morgan Freeman. I got to sit and talk with him for a couple of minutes, and there is not a nicer guy in Hollywood than Morgan Freeman. I don't know who it could be.
That's great.
So these are guys that are good examples, and there's some other examples where people who I've been snubbed twice by a certain famous movie star on films I worked with her on, and I've also was snubbed again by someone at a party who was a famous movie star, and I'm like, what's the point of that? I mean, what does that get you? I was not important enough to be spoken to, or at least they didn't think so. So there's the gamut. I mean, it's all about attitude.
Yes.
The attitude monitors the talent that you have.
Yes.
If you have amazing attitude, your talent will all get through, and if you have very bad attitude, a very tiny amount of it will get through.
Yes.
You can look in the dictionary under Robert De Niro and Mickey Rourke.
Yes.
Robert De Niro never stops working. Everyone loves him, and he's an amazing actor. Mickey Rourke, as talented maybe, but certainly way up there in his talent. But he doesn't work very much.
Right.
Well, he's a very unusual person, and his problems, outside of the studios and the sets, keep him from getting more work.
Well, I'll
So
tell you one. I'll tell you two.
those are kind of my stories.
Sure.
My personal stories.
Those are great. The
I saw him once at the Sony lot. I was like, "Who's that strange, creepy guy walking with a black, greasy kind of coat and long, scraggly hair?" And he turned around and it was Mickey Rourke. I was like, "Well, that's interesting."
It's better.
He's
Well,
on the Sony lot.
yeah. Well, it's better than asking yourself that question, then realize you're looking in a mirror. The two. Yeah, the two things I was going to say is you mentioned Frank Langella. For a while, Frank Langella went to my gym, and I must say that seeing him naked was never on my bucket list, and so that's something I could have actually foregone if I'd been given the choice. And
I have a funny, very brief story about Frank.
Sure.
I met him when he said I was talking to him, and he's like very, very friendly, and I knew a lot about his career. And I made some highlights of his career that I admired, and everything else. He was in Dracula on Broadway, and he was in all these films. And he would then say back some anecdote after I had spoken. So I said something else. I thought he was having a conversation. And he would say something back again. And I would say back another thing. And he looked kind of irritated. He said something back again. I'm like, he's trying to have the last word. So I said one more thing. And he finally said, "Oh, well, anyway, blah, blah," and he just walked off. He wasn't upset. He just wanted the last word.
Right. Yes.
That was interesting.
Well, that's an actor thing. The other thing I was going to mention in terms of bad behaviors, I did hear from people who'd worked with Val Kilmer that he would actually put cigarettes out on PAs, and that's really a classic. So, you know, but
I worked with one actress who she arrived and fired the costumer and hired a designer from New York and had them flown out. She had her flown out personally and redesigned all of her wardrobe at the cost of like $50,000 or something.
wow, yeah,
So that was the first day, and she was a holy terror the first day. Everyone got in line, and after that, she was fine. I'm like, well, she's just doing this so that she can make sure that no one messes with her.
yeah,
Because if you're too nice, then that works against you too. So well, that was fascinating.
yeah.
So, anyway,
Okay,
but
cool.
in the same movie, I met Jeffrey Chernow and got to know him, and he's now a mega executive producer at Disney. Does all the Star Wars and all the Star Trek movies and stuff.
Wow.
And he's also a very friendly, nice person. So,
Well,
you know,
yeah, we should call him. We should call him. So, okay, great. Anything else, David?
No, I got to talk about Space Command.
Yeah.
Space Command. If you're interested in working on Space Command, you can call me. I have volunteer jobs and I have paid jobs, both. Especially right now, I'm looking for someone right now that has some experience doing things like packing up materials to be shipped and going to post offices with this sort of thing. You think, oh, it's not a big deal, right? Well, sometimes it is, and it's very important to do it correctly. So I need help with that, and I need help as a PA and a runner type of person that has a car that's reliable. Car reliable for a production assistant is absolutely essential. And I also have set building related activities. I'm looking for a really good carpenter, and I also need people that can paint. So all that stuff I'm looking for right now. And that's kind of it for Space Command.
Okay.
Now I also, I'm going to put my email in here. You can reach me that way if you want to. I also do the table email. So if you're new and you want to be on the table email, you can send me a note and I will help you out. I don't see anybody on here that's not on the table email.
No. Oh, there's Judith.
Is everyone here? Is Marilyn, are you on the table email?
She is.
Good.
Yeah.
So if you're on Mr. Sci-Fi, you get a special offer. Mr. Sci-Fi people can also get on the table email. You can become table members and be in the Zoom calls. So write to me at davefilms@hotmail.com. I will put it in the list here up to the side.
Cool.
And I will get you hooked up with that.
Great.
There was something I was going to say about that too, related to Space Command. Well, Mark might say it today, but we have a new thing coming up here. It's a new Kickstarter campaign.
Yes.
Adam is one of the integral people of this campaign.
Great.
And the other two are my other two people I work with. They're both not in the U.S., but they're still helping us do this.
Yes.
The Kickstarter campaign is right around the corner. We're going to launch it a
right
day early for the special folks that are returning.
Yes.
They get their first crack at it, and then the day of the campaign will be the next day.
It's going to be great.
We'll be on it for I'm not sure how long yet, 4 to 6 weeks.
Yes.
But you'll all hear more about that as the time comes, and other things Space Command related.
Yes, and one thing I should mention in addition, David, is it's great that the two people that you're working with on the campaign who are in other countries, the fact that we found countries that don't have extradition is just so helpful. And you know, no, I'm joking. But no, I mean, it is amazing that nowadays you can work with people in other countries, and it's just like having them in the next room because of the technology. It really is phenomenal.
I had a Zoom meeting the other day, and I had LA, Dominican Republic, Bolivia, Sydney, UK, and somewhere else. There was another like 5 different countries, like 4 continents represented.
It's great. It's great.
Like this, it was like, you know, no problem. So,
yeah.
Anyway, you don't have to be here to help. That's
great.
My point.
Great. Terrific. Yay. 3 cheers, David Bartlett. A man among men. So Adam, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
Yes. We have another question from Kevin Scott 76.
Great.
And he asks, if medical science figures out how we can live forever,
yes,
what would that do to society? Maybe a story idea.
I've thought about this a lot, and I've read extensively on longevity because it really is genetic. I mean, if they can figure out how to alter the genes, there was one gene that they altered in a specific species of worm, and it, I think, tripled the lifespan. It was amazing, and we have that same gene. I've talked to longevity scientists, and one of the challenges, I said, well, why don't they just change everyone's gene that way? He said the problem is that it's also about mitochondria and the length of mitochondria and all that stuff. And the problem is that when you start monkeying with that stuff and make the body more resilient, you can also risk having the cells run out of control and then you get cancer. So it isn't as simple. And longevity studies with human beings are very difficult because humans are so long lived. And so, but if everyone see, I think probably what will happen is they'll come up with a longevity thing that actually works, but it'll be so expensive that only the rich people will be able to afford it. That's probable. The way medicine works in our world. If everyone could live forever, it'd be very problematical in many ways, because often the people who you don't want around stick around. Can you imagine if Hitler was still alive, after all these years, or Pol Pot, or any of these crazy dictators, Joseph Stalin? Would there are certain people that in the public eye that I certainly wouldn't want to last, forever. But I'd like us to last forever. I'd like Elaine and me to be here for, a long time. So it would really change things significantly, and it would mean that having children, you'd really have to make population very much under control, because it could go way, way, way out of hand. The problem, of course, is that people who would live forever would carry their belief systems. One of the things that allows new ideas to flourish is that the old guard dies off, and so like all the people who were there in the Jim Crow era, passed away, and that made the '60s, into the '70s and '80s, a time of greater freedom. Now, of course, the pendulum has swung back, but death does allow old ideas to die, at least for a time. I don't know if there's anything you want to say about that.
No, I know, though, some people evolve.
Yes.
Some people evolve and are better people, but
it's rare.
Yeah, it would be a very different world.
Yeah, but certainly if they came out with a longevity treatment that was significant, I would absolutely get in line for it, because I want to last a long time. We're doing great. I mean, Elaine and I are, we combine our ages. We're 140 now, so we're doing pretty well for 140, really well. It was very funny. A guy for the podcast who was a fan of the Twilight Zone companion called me, and he wanted to do interviews with me and stuff. And he said, "Well, are you retired? What are you up to?" And I said, "No, I'm more busier than I ever have been. I'm writing and directing and producing and writing books, and you name it." So, but staying in shape is what allows us to do that. Elaine's a vegetarian, and I only eat animals that have died in combat or whatever. So they're pretty hardy, and but yeah, I mean, I think one can help oneself with certain life habits. It doesn't guarantee anything, though. I mean, one of the healthiest people I ever knew, Chuck Menville, who was a story editor on Smurfs, a very dear man, he got bone cancer, and he was incredibly healthy. He was a vegetarian, and he exercised, and he played tennis, and then he got bone cancer, a cancer of the spine, and died as a young man. And that was really shocking. So, we do our best. And then poor Mira Furlan, of course, again, another example of, she and a errant mosquito had a dust up, and she gets West Nile virus, so we can just do our best. But immortality is a very interesting subject, and definitely one that I've thought a lot about. So let's see who next. And Mark Agash. Oh wait, Michelle Hart. Michelle Hart is next on my screen, and then you, Mark Agashowitz. So go for it, Michelle.
Hi there. Well, let's see. First of all, Dave Edison, if you're the Iron Man, I think you're rust proof.
Yes. That's because we used Rust-Oleum on him.
To everybody, Carol, don't worry about getting the shots. Go for it. Do it. It's fine.
Yeah.
And if the thing that has if it's the thing where you have a second shot, don't plan on doing anything the next day except like sleeping.
Yeah.
That was my response to it. Was I spent the whole next day flat on my back sleeping all day, and by the end of the day I was fine. And I've that from pretty much everybody else.
Thank you.
I have just finished reading a book. When you inherit books, there were books on my parents' shelves and books that people have given me and so forth. And there was wonderful books that I've just finished reading that sat on the shelf for years, and I just got done with it. It's called Whatever Happened to Hollywood. And it's by Jesse Lasky Jr.
Wow.
And those who enjoy old Hollywood stories and have a long-term perspective on from the very beginning of silent films to till the I would say the mid or late 70s. Whatever Happened to Hollywood is definitely a worthwhile read.
Yes.
Other items of interest. This is a picture of my late husband,
Wow.
George Johnson.
Yes.
My Don Rico, he was very prominent in comics writing and writing and drawing for Marvel for many years. And I just found this picture when I was going through some
That's
stuff
great.
the other day.
That's great.
George. And I actually acted in, George put A Game of Pool and Penny for Your Thoughts up as actual plays.
Yes.
In a little theater that is no more, that was on Ventura Boulevard, somewhere near Tahunga. And I don't even remember what the name of the theater was, but I was working in that, and George was his usual balmy self.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting.
Yes.
I was going to say I'm available for table reads, but I'm going to be less available because I've got a couple days work happening, which is nice.
Great.
I went for my COVID test today with the Q-tip up your nose, and tomorrow is a fitting, and next week is another Q-tip, and the day after that is actual work, which is its background on a pilot. And it's really funny because it came out with an NDA, of course, and then I looked up the name of it, and of course there's tons of information on the thing. You know, why is there an NDA? There's PR on the people who are working on it and everything, and I had only looked into it out of curiosity because I thought maybe I was going to get to, hear something about the state of Georgia, where I have a friend who lives and is regretting living there, but nevertheless. And the thing is a pilot called Welcome to Georgia. And then it turns out Georgia is a human being named Georgia. So it has nothing to do with the state.
Yeah.
So that's going on. And completely unrelated to that, I have acquired a commercial agent. Yahoo!
Yay!
Yay for that. However, the only way that they like me is with my gray wig. So I will be doing commercials with the gray wig, and if that starts turning up a whole lot of work for me, then I'll let the whole thing go gray, and I won't worry about that anymore. I'm going to be represented by those of you who are old timers in Hollywood will remember the name Judith Fontaine. She was a very well-known agent for many years. Primarily models and commercials, which is what she's going to be doing now. She's not representing me for theatrical stuff. And she retired some years ago and decided she didn't like being retired. She's back.
That's great. That's great.
I've at least got some kind of rep after. This is the first time in my life where I had no representation for like 7 or 8 months.
Do you have a picture with the gray wig, or do you put your gray wig on so we can see it? Do you have a picture?
It takes a little time to put it on. There's pictures online. If you go to Michelle Hart and you spell Michelle with one L, you will find pictures of me with gray hair.
Great. That's
all the usual places: IMDb, casting networks, Actors Access, whatever. There should be one suit picture, which I consider to be the wife of the senator or the senator. And the other one is the classic plaid shirt.
Great. So is there anything else you need, Michelle?
I'm just happy that something is happening.
Yes.
Yay.
Congratulations. That's great. That's great. Well, 3 cheers. Yay. So Adam, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
Yes. Our next question is from Scott Baker.
Hi, Scott.
And he asks, did you catch the latest episode of Debris? They lifted the story directly from Little Girl Lost.
Wow. I started to watch Debris. It's a new show on NBC, and I wasn't impressed with it. It just seemed very gimmicky, and life is too short. I'm still trying to catch up with The Mandalorian, for God's sake. So we started watching the Zack Snyder Justice League, which I'll probably do a commentary on soon. I just, there's so much television. It's such an insane amount. I would rather make television than watch television, quite frankly. It's so rare that I see anything fresh or surprising. Elaine and I recently were watching The Big Sleep and The Maltese Falcon and some of the older films, and my God, they're solid. And when you compare that with most of what's being done now, I mean, there are exceptions. I mean, The Queen's Gambit was a terrific TV show. I thought it was great, and but that was written by Walter Tevis, who also wrote The Hustler, and he wrote Mockingbird. I mean, he was a novelist and a very good one. And so The Man Who Fell to Earth is another one of his novels. So the reason that TV show was solid was because the source material was solid, and but a lot of these gimmicky shows where they just went in and they pitched something like there's a new show coming up where they paint dogs to look like other animals like skunks and wildcats and stuff, and you just know that they bought that show because they just hadn't heard that one before because it's such a loopy idea. But so no, I haven't watched that episode of Debris, but my God, I'm always appalled when people rip off other people's work. And I remember when I was story editing Friday the 13th, the series, which Marilyn mentioned, people would come in and pitch rip-offs of Twilight Zone episodes, and I would just smile and say, "Boy, are you in the wrong room?" Because it's like, a ventriloquist dummy is taking over the ventriloquist. It's like, yeah, I know what you're ripping off. So, next. But again, there's so many I mean, Ray Bradbury and I would talk often about how many people had ripped him off. I mean, the holodeck on Star Trek was nothing more than the Velt, the holographic room in the Velt, which was a very famous short story of Ray's. And how many times has Mars is Heaven been ripped off, one of the great stories in the Martian Chronicles. So again, it's like it just goes on and on. So
maybe
yes.
we should jump over to Judith because she is probably in pain.
Yeah, Judith's in pain. She broke her arm.
She broke her arm.
You have to unmute, Judith. Unmute. There you go. Unmute your thing. Let's see. Can you unmute? Up. Yep. I think she's trying to unmute. Up, but it's not working.
Sorry to hear that Judith hurt herself.
Yeah.
You know what's usually good for that? If you have a new puppy, that usually helps when you have a broken
A lot. Yes. Huh? We're not hearing you. I guess it's not.
Do you see her unmute?
I guess it's too hard.
It's just
Unfortunately, I can't unmute her.
Yeah.
When she
There you go. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yay.
Go for it.
Okay.
Go for it.
Unfortunately, I had bought a big crate. His crate is way too small.
The dog.
So I bought a big crate, and it was too heavy to schlep up the stairs. So I went over and I started undoing the box to see if I could schlep it up, and I tripped. And I fell right into the light by the pool and broke my arm. However, I went to the doctor today. There's no surgery. Monday I'm going to pick up a brace.
Great.
So I'll be able to take it on and off. It's not serious. It hurts, but it's not serious.
Good.
I'm not going to stay on very long because I'm kind of whacked out. I had my second vaccination yesterday, so I'm still tired.
Yes.
And that's about it.
Okay.
I've been busy with my arm the whole week.
Yes. Well, feel better. Feel better.
So annoying.
Yeah.
Stupid.
Well.
Stupid.
Yeah. Well, it's stuff happens.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, have you ever heard of anybody saying that it wasn't a stupid accident?
Yes.
Well, it's one thing if you get hit.
Yes.
There's another thing if the concrete, actually, my neighbors have been complaining about Zicree a little bit. The management is not going to
Elaine does that too.
Because the concrete was jutting up.
Wow.
I have a very good lawsuit.
Yes.
But I'm not going to do it. I'm not living here.
No. And again, this proves again my saying don't do anything. So
I'm glad you could.
Well, normally my solution is the two words Jewish lawyer.
Yes.
Not this time. And the manager is in Colombia. He took his mother in for the COVID shot.
Well, there you go.
There.
Wow.
So he keeps calling me, "Am I okay? Do I need anything?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Well,
that's good.
sure.
Well,
But
thank you for
feel
joining
better.
us.
Feel
Thank
better.
you for joining us despite the,
Yeah.
being a
Well,
pinata and
you know,
stuff.
I would miss it. I'm going to get off right away.
Okay.
I just got to look at myself. McKen Brechen. You know what
Uh-huh.
that means? In Yiddish, you could vomit.
Yes, and speaking of Yiddish, there's a really interesting show on Netflix called Unorthodox, which is about the Hasidim and a woman who got away from the Hasidim. And the interesting thing is they speak Yiddish. And I took a year of Yiddish at UCLA, and my mom also was.
Really?
Yeah, and my mom was fluent in Yiddish. She didn't speak it, but she could understand it fluently because she was a little kid, seen and not heard.
Well, yeah, they speak it when they don't want you to
Yes.
understand what they're talking
But
about.
it's a very interesting language, and of course, I can understand a fair amount of what they're saying on that show. So, and when I saw Fiddler on the Roof in Yiddish in New York, and again, I could understand a lot of what they were saying, which was great fun. So, but yes,
There's a movie with it's about the Coen brothers, and it's about the family in Cincinnati,
Yeah.
Connecticut, and the first 20 minutes are with Five-ish Finkel, with whom I did Fiddler on the Roof.
yes,
In Yiddish, and there were a lot of people in the audience, but I was the only one who was really laughing. And I was with my friend Daza, who's Latvian, and she's about 5'9", and the lights went on, and she said, "Let me get out of here now," because they're all short shoes.
huh, that's funny. But yeah, so great. Well, feel better.
It's very evocative.
Yeah, well, feel better. So, yeah.
Thank you, darling.
Any
I'll
puppy
have the
update?
grace.
Oh.
Beg your pardon?
Any puppy update?
Puppy update. I'm going to kill him.
Oh,
He's going into maturity.
yes.
My little boy is growing up.
Huh?
He's not as cute as he's biting and nipping, and I was gone all day, so
Another wise choice.
Yes.
he'll get over it.
Yes.
I'm getting the new crate on Sunday.
Sure.
My apartment manager's going to come and set it up, so
Good.
he'll be in shape.
Okay. Well,
We'll
great.
all be in good shape, and he's very well. He knows sit, he knows stay,
Yeah.
except when he's doing his zoomies.
Yeah. Okay. Well, 3 cheers. Yay.
I'm going to get off now. I'm going to go take my Norco and
Okay.
lay down.
Okay.
Okay,
Thanks.
well, thanks for joining us.
Yes. Feel better.
Feel better, Judith.
Thank you.
Okay. So,
We should all, by the way, get together in a Yiddish seminar.
yes. Yes, that sounds good.
Those of us who speak Yiddish.
Yeah.
I don't know if Mark ever told you about SDDS.
Oh, yes. That's sudden dog deafness syndrome, where it's like where they don't want to obey, so they just like act like they
Go
can't
deaf.
hear you.
Yeah.
Yes. Sudden dog
Well,
deafness.
that's this one.
Yes.
But he
Yes.
doesn't like being in the small crate, and I don't blame him.
Well, no. Cool.
History, so
Yeah.
we'll do it. And by the time I get Sunday and I get the big crate,
Yeah.
it'll be much better.
That's great. That's great. Well, yay. 3 cheers.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for Zicree.
You're welcome.
And
Okay.
everything. I'm going to go now because
Okay.
I'm falling off my face.
Okay.
Okay.
Take care.
Okay. I'll
Bye.
talk to you during the week. Bye.
I
Okay.
thought that was sudden director deafness syndrome.
No. That's different. So, Adam, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
Yes, and of course, there's also the that famous line from the producers. And on his deathbed, he told me, "I'll mention Musamakin, ageism, Pifikakin."
Yeah. There you go.
What does it mean? I don't know. I don't speak Yiddish.
That's funny.
Neither did he.
That's funny. That's funny. So, yeah.
Our question is from Todd Chamberlain.
Oh, yeah.
Second what you had to say about Unorthodox. It's a phenomenal series.
Yes.
It is a view of what we think of as being Jewish is the people on Fairfax eating corned beef sandwiches.
Yeah.
This is all another world.
Yes.
It is completely different. It's brilliantly done.
Yeah. Really interesting show. But go ahead, Adam. What, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
Yes, from Todd Chamberlain.
Hi, Todd.
And he mentions that George Segal passed away on Tuesday.
That's a shame.
He was mostly known for comedy, but he did a Michael Crichton film, The Terminal Man,
Yeah.
in 1974.
Yes.
Do you know that film or any George Segal anecdotes?
And it's George Segal, of course.
Segal, sorry.
Yeah. The several things. He was also in a movie called Where's Papa with Ruth Gordon. That's very, very funny. He's in the movie, I think it's 2012. He's in that, and he's very, very good in it.
Yes.
The thing that I found most interesting about him, and I talk about it in Greenlighting Yourself, is he would go on Johnny Carson on the Tonight Show fairly often, and he'd bring a banjo, and he would sing, and he would tell jokes, and he'd be the life of the party. And Carson said, "Are you always like this?" And George Segal said, "No. When I'm really shy." And he said, "When I knew I was coming on your show, I thought, okay, what kind of person would be entertaining?" And I thought of it like an acting exercise. And I created this persona as a character that I'm performing. I'm not like this at all, actually. And I thought that was very interesting. So that's my favorite George Segal story. And but he was really solid, and I always enjoyed whenever I would see him in a movie. He always brought something to it, and and he's very, very good in 2012. He's one of the few things in that movie that is good, but he definitely left an impression. So sorry to hear about it. Yes, he's in Ship of Fools. He's not good in that. He plays sort of this lover character, and he's kind of lost at sea, which is appropriate because it's set on a boat. So okie doke. So
By the way,
Jessica Walters died, and I forgot what film they were in together, but just another one of the good from that era.
yeah. And what were you going to say? I heard a voice say something.
oh, I was going to say he played in the Beverly Hills Unlisted Jazz Band. It was a Dixieland band.
Yes,
With,
Conrad Janis.
Yeah.
Conrad Janis, right?
I think he played banjo, if I recall.
Yes.
He did.
Yeah, they were great.
Yes, that was his instrument. So there you go. Okay, great. Well, on a lighter note, Mark Gagushewitz,
Yay.
who is still with us.
Still with us.
Yes.
Played banjo.
Sometimes I wonder.
Yes.
So since you're talking about a lot of the anthology series and everything, I'm curious what you thought of a series that I'm revisiting right now called Tales from the Dark Side.
Michael Reeves wrote for that show. Interestingly enough, my friend Michael, who is a table member, I haven't watched enough of them really to have an opinion. I don't tend to gravitate toward the horror anthologies, just like I watched very few episodes of Tales from the Crypt, or what, and even Thriller. I mean, oddly enough, I did an audio commentary on the Thriller box set, but I haven't watched very many of those either. It's just, again, it's just life is too short, but I haven't even watched all of the Hitchcock show. I've watched, again, few of those. So I don't really have an opinion.
Okay, so I just started rewatching it because I was researching Jodie Foster and I saw she had actually directed an episode.
Really?
Oh.
And this is a show that I remember. I'm revisiting it now, where the episodes are either really awful or really good, and there was no in between. There's one with Harry Anderson, which is one of the worst things in the world, and then the one Jodie Foster directed is like really good.
That's great.
So I was kind of curious. And then I wanted to show you this because you kept bringing up this movie for weeks on end. This is a vinyl of the soundtrack.
Wow.
Wow, Robinson Crusoe on Mars. That's great. I've never seen that. That's neat.
Yeah, I got to the very last Monster Palooza I was able to go to because of all this.
Wow.
I thought I was anyway, so I've had quite a bit of editing work this week. Kind of took over my life for a couple of days. Wasn't able to move that much forward on my own stuff. But that's good because it means money's coming in and projects are happening. Today I helped a friend out on a film shoot. So there's all that. I also just received a new round of sound from Earl on my short zombie movie.
Great.
And now on Saturday we're going to talk about both versions of the sound that he gave us, because the music, there's some in version 2 that works better than version 1, and some in version 1 that works better than version 2. So I think we're going to be mixing it up.
Cool.
And then, of course, I'm building my website and podcast, which went totally ignored this week because I had a lot of work. But I have started setting up the interviews for the podcast, which the first interview is not next week, but the week after. And I'm going to try and do an interview a week until I get at least 4 done.
Great.
Joe Doherty, who's a table member, and I believe you're working with right now.
Yes.
He's agreed to come on the show. I just got set up a date with him. Thanks to Dave Edison for introducing us. Who should not be called the Iron Man. If he's an editor like most editors, he should be called the Savior. He smiled.
Yeah, that's good.
What is the T-shirt? That famous T-shirt? Editor because the job description fucking miracle worker is unavailable or something like that.
That's funny. So great.
But yeah, I mean, it's been a pretty busy week, but it's just been, editing gigs for a couple of friends came out of the woodwork with projects they needed done, and so I've been just kind of busy and getting no sleep, but it feels good to be working.
Great.
It's great.
Great. Anything you need? Anything you need?
No, not right now, but if anybody needs anything from me, they can feel free to reach out.
Great. And one thing I did notice about that soundtrack you just showed us, it showed the monkey, Mona. And that is the one element in that movie that wears a little thin, I must say. It's like, it's not, that monkey gets a little tired, but
I believe the trailer says that it's scientifically accurate. It's a movie that's scientifically accurate, which I'm pretty sure now that we've been up to Mars, we might find is very untrue.
One interesting thing about it is that the space hardware is really the design of it is cool, very cool, and it was designed by a guy named Ming Chang, who then went on to design the tricorder on Star Trek, and you can really see the similarities. Additionally, the Martian flying machines in the George Pal War of the Worlds are repurposed for Robinson Crusoe on Mars. So that's another little interesting bit of trivia. So, and Ib Melchior, of course, wrote the script, and he's done many films that were very interesting, not necessarily good, but interesting. And he was like Danish and a very hugely enthusiastic and nice guy. I met him. And, so there's that too. Anything else for now, Mark?
Something to hit on what Carol was saying, because she was saying that there's no reason to be nervous or whatever. There's a great book called My First Movie that people should read, and you'll start to realize that you're no different than any of the big name directors. There's interviews with people like James Mangold in it, and the Coen brothers, in the Coen brothers interview, I don't remember which one, but one of the Coen brothers says he literally was throwing up every day in the parking lot before going on the set of Blood Simple.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
nervous.
Well.
So I think the lesson isn't necessarily that you shouldn't be nervous. It's just that it's okay to be
Yes.
nervous.
Well, when
these big names, Mike Figgis didn't even come up with the first shot of his first movie.
Wow.
He was so nervous that the DP did. And it's just sometimes you feel like, oh my God, am I ever going to make it? And then you read these stories and you realize, oh my God, these big names, they were in that position.
Yes. It's true. It's true. When I met Spielberg, I was having lunch with Carol Serling and J.J. Abrams at the Disney restaurant, and in the studio. And Spielberg came up, and we were talking about Rod Serling, and Spielberg, of course, directed the Joan Crawford section of the Night Gallery pilot, and he said, "I wasn't that nervous again until I did Jaws." So that was great. That was great. And though it's very funny, I think I've told you before that I had a camera with me that day, but I was too nervous. I was too shy to ask if I could get a photo with Spielberg. So I then went to the Madame Tussauds Wax Museum and got a photo with the wax figure. So on some of my sites, on my Facebook page, if you look, there's a photo of me with JJ and with Guillermo del Toro and so forth. And the photo of me with Spielberg looks oddly waxy. So pretty funny.
My Steven Spielberg story is basically, I used to manage for Aaron Brothers, and whenever you got something custom framed, the manager was supposed to sign off on it, but we never did. But somebody came in from some Jewish organization, and they were going to give this award to Steven Spielberg, so we had to frame it. So, of course, I made sure to sign off on that with my signature. So as much as I would like, actually, I do have something signed by Steven Spielberg in my living room, but as much as I would like to be there when he signs it, if I ever go into his office and I see that picture, that's a good opening point to sit there and say, you've got my signature hanging on your wall. If you
wow, that's great. That's fun. That's really fun. Well, great. Well, 3 cheers, Mark Gushowitz.
Speaking of Mars, have you been listening to the rover recordings?
Yes, yes.
The audio?
Yes.
Because the audio is weird, because you listen to it and go, well, it's just white noise. It's just wait a second, it's white noise from Mars.
Yeah, well, the thing that really blew me away was the video of it landing. And I sure hope they do more video, because all of these Martian probes have always been still images. And my gosh, I would love to have more video. They're going to have that helicopter flying over the train. I sure hope I've heard that it's going to take still photos, but gosh, if it did video, I would be in hog heaven,
I mean, you can get little air hogs for like $20, little toys that take video.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. So is there another mystery?
I am a little Steven Steven Spielberg story.
Oh, okay, sure.
Which I think was really something. I was in line at a theater. It's a theater at the Veterans, near the Veterans building in Westwood, the big theater there. I forget what the name of it is, but we were in line to go in, and they were having an issue with ticketing. And so everybody had to like wait in a long line. And one of the gals came out, and Kate Capshaw was pregnant. They had a couple kids, and she was pregnant, and Steven Spielberg. And the girl went up to them and said, "Oh, can we take you in?" And he said, "No, we'll just wait in line with everyone else."
That's sweet.
So that I thought was really nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he was probably trying to induce labor. So, but okay. Yeah. Well, great. That's
the Village Theater.
No, I can't remember the name of the big theater in the veteran near the Veterans building.
Well,
it's a
that's
very
great.
Big, beautiful theater.
Cool.
I can't think of the name.
That's swell. That's swell. So, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Yes, but first we have our first super chat of the night from Gregory Krug.
Great.
who says $5 for Adam's Yiddish. Apparently he liked my little anecdote.
It's a classic.
But, the question is a very quick question. Yeah, I know.
Who knew? Yeah, it should be.
I'm not even and I'm not even Jewish.
Yeah, you should do a GIF.
Yeah, there we go. But the question is a quick one, very easy one from Ekrosir, who wants to know whether or not Space Command is a union production.
Yes, it is. Well, it's two unions. It's SAG-AFTRA and also Writers Guild signatory. We are not DGA simply because Elaine and I are not in the DGA, and it adds, if we were, it would add a lot of cost to production, not just the director's costs, but you have to have a DGA, first AD, all sorts of stuff.
And you have to have so many guys.
Right.
That I was talking to a line producer when we were trying to decide whether or not we could
Yeah.
DGA. and I was looking down and I said, wait, we have to have all those guys to support the director.
Right.
And the line producer said, yes. I said, who are all those guys? What do they do?
Yes.
And he said, I said, okay, well, let's not do
Right.
DGA.
So we're SAG because our name actors are all SAG, and we didn't want them to have to sneak around behind their own union. And we're WGA, but because it's our own company, we can defer, which is what we've been doing. But yeah, so those are the unions we're signatory with. And yeah, so let's see. Kira, go for it. You're up. Oh, there you go.
Hello, how are you? So this is Kira, and I am the film composer and the guitarist and the Japanese language instructor. I'm a little bit tired now because I finished 3 lessons in a row, and I have one more from 9.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no.
Okay, and film composer, and right now, I bought this book.
Mm-hmm.
This one is published maybe the end of the March.
How fun!
And it's thick, and this is a completely full score. Maybe.
Cool.
So many things to learn maybe from, but I
yes.
cannot open it.
That's great.
And one thing, my O1 visa, right?
Yes.
Is successfully extended for next 3 years.
Yay! 3 cheers.
Yay,
That's great. Congratulations.
Yeah. And yeah, that's it all about me.
Great.
And just I'm happy to be with you.
Well, it's great to have you here. So congratulations.
Yeah,
That's great news. And when you're talking about the Star Trek composers, they really were remarkable. I mean, the ones on the original show were terrific, and when they started going into the movies, it started with Jerry Goldsmith with Star Trek: The Motion Picture, but then you got James Horner with Wrath of Khan, and though that brought up a very interesting thing because he did a cue in Wrath of Khan. No, I think it was Star Trek 3. He did a cue. And he used the exact same cue in Aliens, and one of the studios sued him for using his own music. It was a really there was never any example of that prior to that, of a composer being sued for plagiarism of himself, and that was a very, very interesting lawsuit. But James Horner was just amazing in that, and I love the score for Wrath of Khan and Star Trek 3. Both, and so phenomenal stuff. So great. Well, cool. Well, good to see you, Akira. So, is there a Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam? You have to.
Sorry, I was putting a little thing. So yes, we have a question from Glinzer.
Great.
A fairly new watcher.
Great.
So the question is, if a biopic was made of Rod Serling,
Yes.
what actor, past or present, would do justice in portraying him?
It's interesting because I was hired as a consultant on a Rod Serling biopic that never got made. And then Richard Kelly, the director of Donnie Darko, was trying to get a Serling project going. And the actor I submitted to him, the actor I suggested to him, who I think would be terrific, is Sam Rockwell. I think he'd make a great Rod Serling. And but there's a bunch who would be really good. But the challenge actors have with any real life person is to not do an impression like a Rich Little impression, but to actually do a performance. I mean, for instance, Meryl Streep's been very good with that when she did the Iron Lady. But it takes a real actor to not be lost in the mannerisms and to really, really, really do the person. And Serling, of course, is so distinctive. But Sam Rockwell would be my first choice. Yeah, yeah. And I actually came up with a story called Twilight Man, which was a big fantasy action picture with Serling as the main character. And eventually I may get around to writing that. It's a really fun story. And but that lies ahead in the future. So, but cool. So now it's Elaine's turn. Wonderful, Elaine! Yay, Elaine! Yay! So do you have a Hollywood story to tell?
Hollywood story. Well, I did run on a treadmill beside Jodie Foster.
Yes.
And I sort of did a double take. I said, "Who is that lovely woman who's not wearing any makeup?" And I went, "Uh-oh.
It's Jodie Foster."
So not only was she lovely without any makeup, but she was running like like nobody's business without complaining. And I thought, good golly, good old Jodie Foster. So so I got to run beside Jodie Foster, who was being extremely disciplined. That's the length and width of my stories. Mark says, did you see that? Did you see that star? Did you see that star?
Yes, never does. Never does.
I'm Dr. Watson.
Yeah.
So no, nothing new. Just trying to up the energy behind my projects and suss out the new Hollywood. So just doing a lot of research and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
To get a few more things on its feet.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very happy for my DP, who has a piece that he got from a novel about the mafia because he grew up with the mafia, which I hadn't known.
Mm-hmm.
Being Italian.
In Sicily, he grew up in Sicily with the Italian mafia.
And
yes,
asked for help with the rewrites, and so that will be at the beginning of the month.
I think one should rephrase that. You rewrote the script and are credited as a writer on it, and they're rolling camera and shooting that pilot in a week, and they've invited us to be on set.
Yes.
So that's a big difference. And if the show moves forward, you're going to be, they've offered you to run the writing staff.
Yes.
And so that's so we'll see what happens with all of that. But that's so your work is actually getting made, and of course Elaine is I mean, you look at Elaine and you immediately think mafia. So
it's very peculiar. That part was very peculiar.
Yes, but perfect. So, vegetarian.
Vegetarian.
Yes.
Just trying to get the rest of the things out there, and what I was able to do because my DP who's doing this and is to really hone in on character and the moral ambiguities, because some of the people who are members of the mafia are not mafia friendly,
right?
And the fact that who is bad, and the fact that some of the people at the mafia influence are far seedier than some of the members of the mafia.
Yes. But I must admit, when I was listening to Elaine getting notes over the phone and only hearing her side of it, I loved the moment where she said, so the uncle's chopped up in the freezer. Okay, I got it. Yeah. Okay.
So that was the outcome, but that was the stuff that was written primarily by Mossy. And so all I did was do a logic task for that. It was the women. The women. None of you women will be surprised. It was the women that I really went at.
The characters, yes.
The women characters,
but it's got a number of name actors in it, and they're shooting it on a soundstage, and it's real production. So it's going to be very exciting, and Elaine will no doubt be treated like a queen, as she should be at all times. So anything else?
No, that's it.
Yay, Elaine! 3 cheers, Elaine. So okay. So another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam.
Yes. Let's go with Scott Gamble question.
Okay, great.
Do you have another Ray Harryhausen encounter or discussion story we haven't heard yet?
Well, the main thing is that I was, partnered with Harryhausen on a project where we were going to make his unmade projects, his unmade stories, and I outlined the sequel to Jason and the Argonauts, which is called Jason in the Underworld, in which Orpheus loses his wife to the underworld, and he's a singer, not a warrior. So he seeks out Jason to put together sort of like the Magnificent Seven of the ancient warriors to go into the underworld and bring his wife back. And so it was a very fun project, and I wish we'd been able to make it. But Harryhausen was a real gentleman, a genius. We flew to Chris Wyatt and Elaine and I flew to London and met with him at his house, which had been owned previously by Michael Powell, the director of the Red Shoes, and Harryhausen took me into the room that had all of his wonderful figures that he had made for Jason and the Argonauts and Seventh Voyage of Sinbad and so forth. But he wouldn't let me take a photo in there, which I wanted very much to. And he had an original painting by Gustave Doré because that was one of his favorite artists. And if you ever look at Harryhausen's sketches, he's using the patterning that Doré used for doing verdant, lush backgrounds. And but he was really a remarkable guy. And I have a lithograph, a print of one of his drawings that he signed to me, and Ray Bradbury also signed it because they were such good friends. And one of my treasures. But I'm very glad I got to know Harryhausen, as I'm very, very glad I got to know Ray Bradbury. And you'll never see these guys like again. They were one of a kind. They only made one of them, and I'm so glad that I got to work with them and know them. And that's, yeah, and it's definitely a memory. And it was great. It was great. And one thing I will say about Harryhausen is he is idolized by the young generation of fantasy filmmakers, Guillermo del Toro, and Tim Burton. I mean, these are people who just. Guillermo in his backyard has a life-size bronze of Ray Harryhausen, so that gives you some idea of how revered he is. So okay, great. So now I guess it's my turn. Me, wonderful me, yay! Well, let's see. I came up in the industry with James Cameron, and oh no, that's David Bartlett. Uh, I lost my identity for a moment. Things are going great. Things are going terrifically well. I have no complaints. My life is a dream come true. I get to know all of you swell people, and we're working on Space Command. Visual effects are coming in basically daily. We're getting all of that done. We're building the sets, building the creatures, getting ready to shoot more. I talked to Mitch Suskin today, who is a visual effects supervisor who's won 3 Emmys for Lost and Star Trek Voyager and Enterprise, and he worked on Star Trek Discovery, and he's been working with us on Space Command, and we're bringing him aboard in even more of a capacity to work with us. He's a genius, and he just knows this stuff backwards and forwards. Working on the new book, Greenlighting Yourself. It's about 50 pages away from being done, the first draft, so that's very exciting. And what else? Sweet Haven, the Showrunners Network, that's all moving along extremely well. We have actors in it who I idolize, people like Veronica Cartwright and Kristen, what's her name, from Lost in Space, and on and on. I'm Michael Harney and Barbara Bain and so on and so forth. And
Kristen.
Marta Kristen, yes, Marta Kristen. She was a last minute suggestion from Bill Mummy, and so that's why I was blanking on her name, but she's terrific. And it just keeps going. I mean, our days are full from when we wake up to when we go to bed. There's tons and tons and tons of things to do, but they're all things I love doing. So there's no downside to any of this stuff other than the constant need to raise funds. But thank God I'm able to do that, and it just keeps going. I'm to be partnered with Rockney O'Bannon and Mark Fergus and Hawk Ostby and Joe Dougherty on the Showrunners Network, and Elaine, of course, and it just keeps going. We finished the pitch deck on the Showrunners Network, and we have a Zoom call tomorrow with Laura, who's our venture capital person, and hopefully we can raise the $36 million to shoot the 6 pilots, to our backdoor pilots. But it's a dream come true. I've got my own studio, got my own spaceship sets, got a team that's wonderful. Dave Edison, the Iron Man of Space Command, and Dave Bartlett, who big Dave Bartlett, as they say, who's a Damon Runyon character essentially. No, but we'll come up with a good nickname for Dave. We came up with a good one for you a while ago, David Bartlett, and I can't remember what it was. I think it was Dave the Bee. I think that was it, Dave the Bee. So that was pretty good. And
Pretty good.
yes, well, it's the best we've got right now. But but after all, no one named a dog after you. I mean, when she say,
Corey Hubbard. That
yeah,
was
Forey Hubbard is the character you
also
play.
get, on occasion, I get, let's see, Oscar Wilde.
That's funny. That's funny. But yeah. So but
hopefully you're a little less self-destructive than that.
Yeah, really.
Oh,
But
yes, but I do love his last line before he died. His
yes.
deathbed, he said, "This wallpaper is killing me, and one of us has to go."
I thought his last words were, "I'm dying above my means," but he probably said both of those things.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, and yeah, and W.C. Fields' dying words were, "I'd rather be in Philadelphia," which is good too. Anyway, be that as it may. But yes, but things are going great, and I'm working on many projects that are my dream projects, and if you haven't seen the Space Command animatic, I posted the work in progress on Mr. Sci-Fi. I'm very pleased with it. Dave has done a brilliant job, and and we're just continuing on. It's life is good. What were you gonna? Oh, there's Earl. Jesus Christ. So now I guess we go to Earl, who just popped up.
Before Earl, Mark.
Yes.
I just pulled this up. Oscar Wilde last words apparently. This wallpaper and I are fighting a duel to the death. Either it goes or I do.
That's good too. That's good too. So
and there is a one last super chat.
Go for it.
I want to mention from Guylinda B. Who says, "Live long and party on."
Great. And is there a final Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Let's do real quick. Here. It was a question from Scott Baker.
Okay, great. Hi, Scott.
Who asks about, he noticed that you have Bob Picardo interacting with an AI-controlled android, and there's a bit of a liberation plot.
Yes.
Is that a hint at the Doctor in Voyager, or
yes? No, it's definitely. I mean, I'm very aware of the history, and so yes, there is it's a knowing aspect of what I'm doing. Additionally, it was great when we had Bob recreate the character of Johnny Cab in the prequel, and we have that in the graphic novel, though it's not named overtly, but everyone will get the gag, and so it's very, very fun, very, very fun. And Bob Picardo has an amazing litany of roles he's played. One that most people don't know is he's the main evil werewolf in The Howling, and he's terrific in it. And so if you want to go back and watch The Howling, and you'll say, "My God, that is Bob Picardo," and he's just scary and creepy in that movie, just terrific. So I love Bob; he's great. So
the wacky alien and explorers.
Yes.
Ethan Hawke.
Yes, that's just great.
And he was one of the best non-Jewish rabbis.
Yes, in Hail Caesar, he plays Jews very, very well, even though he's not. And so, Earl, go for it.
Hey everyone, Earl F. Smith. Busy week. Everybody going back to school, and I just signed up 2 more students, so my 43 went to 45 students.
Great.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I'm blessed in that regard. I'm finishing up Mark's film, Ogutchewitz.
Great.
Right?
Yes, that's great.
So last touches of that, I should finish my pass this weekend. I just got to add a little bit more faith playing violin, and I want to do a little touch-ups on the little title card with some sound design parts. But pretty much most of the music is there. I'm going to send some stems to Mark for him to move things if he wants, and do the final. And so next week I'll also be spending mixing to finalize it up. We're almost done, and then I'll move on to the next film. But that's about it, really. I'm going to begin to look for possibly like a room to rent in LA. So when I come down there, I don't have to stay at friends or hotels or however.
Great.
Something inexpensive.
Put that out.
That out to the table. You'll get response.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's about it with me.
Cool. 3 cheers. Earl. Yay. So I think we've come to the end of our wonderful table, Mr. Sci-Fi simulcast for this week. We're here every week Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. So so be there or don't. Dave says I should never say be there or be square. So I'm trying to do a lateral shift. So
And you might want to cut down on without further ados as well.
yeah, well, there's a very fine line between eccentricity and being tiresome, but I kind of straddled that line, I think. So one thing I'll tell you that's very interesting. One thing I noticed with both Ray Bradbury and my friend Ted Sturgeon was, like, for instance, Ray had a stump speech that was an hour long, and whenever he gave a talk, it would be that speech. I mean, literally, it was that one speech about his career. And Ted Sturgeon would have several anecdotes that he would tell over and over and over again to different people. So if you hung out with these guys and went with them to different events, you'd hear the same anecdotes. And Ted Sturgeon once apologized to me, said, "I'm sorry that you have to keep hearing the same stories." And I said, "No, it's fine, Ted. I don't mind." Because again, these guys were expected to be entertaining. And it's very hard to be entertaining with endlessly fresh material. And so that's one thing Quentin Crisp said. Quentin Crisp was this amazing raconteur and wit, and he said, the thing about wit is you don't have to do it off the top of your head. You can work out the witticisms beforehand and then say them at the in the moment as though they're fresh. And that was very, very true, very clever. So anyway, that's about it for now. So thanks, guys. We'll see you next time. It's lovely to see all of you, and stay safe, stay well, and we'll talk again really soon. Okay, bye. Bye, guys. And Mr. Sci-Fi friends, we'll see you next time too. Bye.